What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 4 Pi, Chapter 11 Bathria, Bass Isle, Winter Island. On a piece of snow-white plain, there was a sudden burst of not loud rumble. I saw Bada groping under the stone in front of him for a while, and suddenly seemed to press some mechanism. The stone slowly slid to the right, revealing a dark passage slanting downward. Bada turned his head to look at Sorata, and walked in first. And the younger brother who was following behind him also hurriedly followed with big and small bags on his back. It's amazing, it's actually hidden in the mountain, no wonder he can't sense it with his knowledge. Sorata looked at the not-so-large passageway, the corners of her mouth curled up, her face full of curiosity. From the looks of it, it must not have been built by Bass, so it must have been in the past. Maybe this is the cellar used by the winery to store wine in the former kingdom of Bath. Thinking of this, he quickly followed in. There may be a lot of Bath wine left. After Sorata and the others entered the passage, Bada stayed in front of the door and reached out to press on the right wall. I saw the stones at the entrance of the passage above, suddenly sliding back to the original place quickly, completely blocking the passage, leaving no light in the passage, and it was as dark as an abyss. Everyone stood in place without panic, waiting for Bada. Bada did not keep them waiting. I saw that Bada pressed the stone next to the switch just now, and the whole passage was suddenly bright as day in a burst of flickering. Looking up, there was a lighting lamp installed on the wall of the original passage not far away. When the lights came on, they could see the passage clearly. The entire passage is in a spiral shape, spinning downwards, like a castle ladder. Boss, let's go this way. I don't know if it's an illusion, but I always feel that when Bada and his gang enter the passage, their steps are much lighter and more eager. It was as if someone was waiting for them in front of them. After walking down the spiral ladder for a while, they stopped in front of a huge wooden door. Bada went up and grabbed the handle on the door and knocked lightly. Boom. The sound is not loud, but it is deafening in this small underground. Creak. The wooden door suddenly opened from the inside. Wow. It's Uncle Bada, you guys are back. When a few skinny children rushed out first, they first yelled towards the inside, and then rushed to Brother Bada, trying to take the package from them. Several little fellows took a package from a younger brother, smelled the aroma of food inside, and swallowed their saliva. However, these little guys did not open it, but lifted it vigorously and walked towards the wooden door, shouting as they walked. Come out and help, Uncle Bada and the others brought a lot of things back this time. Advertisement. Hearing the shout, more children rushed out of the door. These children all have a common situation, that is, they are all thin and small. It seems to be malnutrition caused by long-term starvation. The little ones were not noisy, they were very polite and first said hello to Bada, and then took the package from the hands of Bada's younger brothers, with excited smiles on their faces, just like Chinese New Year. Several people carried the package together and entered the wooden door. The little brothers lost their hostility outside, but were full of gentleness, and all looked at the little guys with smiles on their faces. Some younger brothers looked at the adoring eyes of the little guys, and proudly puffed out their chests. Sorata and the others watched all this quietly without making a sound. The smiles on the faces of the three of Awa have long since disappeared. The scene in front of me really makes me laugh out loud. Sorata looked at Bada with a red light in his eyes. Sweeping across the entire passage in an instant, it was full of children and old people. Bada, are you all left in the Bath Kingdom? Okay? Boss, please come face to face. Although the Kingdom of Bath is gone, we still have some Bath wine left. I think it is enough for us to entertain you. He said with a chuckle, haha, boss, don't dislike us for our poor hospitality. How could be? Sorata stared into Bada's eyes, followed by a smile on his face. Even in the endlessly dead Winter Island, hope for life can be bred. He felt the good spirit and the smiles on the faces of the children here. He felt that they didn't hate the world, no matter how bad the world was, they still faced it with a smile. Ha 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 ha. Let's go, Bada, let me see the bath bar that I've been thinking about. Boss, this way please. Bada suddenly resumed his aristocratic demeanor, straightened his back, and walked into the gate first. Entering the gate, I saw a huge space inside. The ground in the middle was full of parcels, surrounded by hundreds of children, and under the surrounding walls, there were countless old people sitting. These old people all stared at Bada with smiles on their faces, as if looking at their king. If it hadn't been for Bada in the past few years, they don't know if they would have survived. Bada, you are finally back. At this moment, a beautiful red-haired girl who was about 16 or 17 and dressed in maid costumes walked over quickly and scolded Bada for a while. I told you not to work so hard. This time the group was almost wiped out. Apparently the woman knew what happened on the pier. As she said that, she turned her head to look at the younger brother who came in with Bada, and was relieved to see that everyone was intact. But then, when she saw Sorata and the others, she suddenly froze in place. Advertisement. Then his face turned pale and he broke out in a cold sweat. Aware of the maid's condition, Bada's eyes flashed with distress, then he stretched out his big hand, rubbed the maid's head, and said softly, "Don't be afraid, Leah, they're not bad people. These foods can be said to be given to us by them." Oh, after listening to Bada's words, Leah felt light all over. Then he stared curiously at Sorata, especially Kuina behind Sorata, who was about her age, but was already a famous Grand Line celebrity. Sorata looked at Leah, smiled lightly, and said politely. Hello, my name is Sorata, and I am a guest of Uncle Bada. Leah was taken aback by Sorata's sunny smile, then blushed and spoke hastily. Hello, I'm Ba Leah, you can call me Leah. Hi Leah, my name is Ahua. Ahua looked at Leah, pushed the mirror frame, and asked quickly. Seeing that Awa was in the lead, Aluo was not to be outdone, he slapped Matt's hair in a coquettish manner and winked at Leah. Hello, Leah, my name is Aluo, the only handsome man in East Blue. Vomit. Ahua bent over and retched for a while. It's just you, handsome man, don't be funny. What did you say? I said, it's just you are still a handsome man. Awa straightened up, picked out his ears, and looked at Aluo contemptuously. Didn't you hear clearly? Do you want me to say it again? You guys seem to want to fight again. Do you think that you can surpass me if you eat too many radishes these days? With blue veins popping out of Aluo's forehead, he rushed towards Aluo. Hit and hit, whoever shoots who. Not to be outdone, Awa also rushed towards Aluo. Just when their foreheads were about to hit each other. Boom, boom, two fists mercilessly hammered these two guys to the ground, and a big bump appeared on their heads at the same time. Being a guest at someone's house, don't be ashamed. Kuina withdrew her hand and smiled at Leah. Don't worry, these two families usually look like this, you just think they're acrobats. Saying that she held out her hand. Hello, my name is Kuina. Hello. Leah looked at Kuina, stretched out her hand and shook Kuina lightly, then let go quickly. Adao smoked a cigarette, spit out a smoke ring smartly, looked at the two people who fell on the ground, and smiled contemptuously. Retarded. Chapter 12. When do you think people die? Calical. Puff, puff, miss, have we met somewhere? Indigo walked past Ahua and Leah and looked at her with doubts. You are. Leah looked at Indigo, stepped back suddenly, and a flash of memory flashed in her eyes. The deputy of the old man with the rudder in his head. It seems to be called, Golden Lion, right? As she spoke, she stared at Indigo curiously. The other party left a deep impression on her. After all, it was hard to forget the unique sound of walking and laughter. And Golden Lion can be with her father. Father? Then she trembled all over, covered her head, and suddenly burst into tears. What's wrong? Kuina looked at Leah and asked with concern. I don't know, I just thought of someone, and it happened all of a sudden. That person has no impression in my mind at all, but I just want to cry, and I don't know why I cry. Leah raised her head and looked at Kuina, trying to stop her tears, but couldn't. She didn't know why. Every time she thought of her father, whom she had no memory of at all, he couldn't stop being sad. This kind of sadness that erupted from the bottom of her heart made her burst into tears every time. And she herself has no idea what's going on, as if there is another personality crying in her body. Kuina looked at Leah, with a flash of distress in her eyes, and wanted to reach out to hug her, but stopped after thinking about it. She could feel Leah's helplessness and sadness, but this kind of inexplicable emotion was completely different from Leah's in front of her eyes. She then turned her head to look at Indigo. Since Indigo knew Leah, maybe knowing Leah's past, she could know why she was like this. Indigo stared at Leah in a daze, then looked up at Bada. Should I call you Bada, or Base? Base? Everyone looked at Bada in surprise. Sorata looked at Bada with curious eyes. This guy is really not simple, he discovered the difference in this guy on the pier. However, from Indigo's words, his guess may still be conservative. He had previously thought that this guy was at best a nobleman. I didn't expect that it might be the king here. How could a king show such flattery to them? A real man. Advertisement. All he could think of now were these three words. I don't know why I can't remember who you are at all, but my heart tells me that I must know you. Indigo glanced at Leah. I knew it when I saw this princess. You must be the former king here, because I only met two people in the kingdom of Bath. One is your daughter, Princess Bath Leah, and the other is. As he spoke, he looked at Bada and said affirmatively, it's you, am I right? Bada ignored Indigo, but looked at Leah distress-edly, walked slowly to Leah's side, and hugged her while Leah was full of disbelief. I'm sorry, my princess, my daughter, it's useless for my father to make you and the people suffer so much. His voice was low and full of sadness. Now that he brought Sorata and the others back, he actually planned to tell the truth. Now that Indigo has seen through his identity, there is no need for him to hide. Sorata's group is the only one he has met in the past 2 years, who truly have justice in his heart. He is willing to gamble on Sorata and the fate of the kingdom of Bath. Because of him. Because he has no time. He could already feel that the crisis in his heart was gradually devouring him, leading him to the abyss and to death. As long as he dies, this place will definitely become an endless hell. And Leah, and Guoman. Father, Leah lay in Bada's arms, dumbfounded. Okay. Bada let go of his hands, looked at Leah, and reached out to touch Leah's face. I'm sorry, Leah, my incompetent father made you suffer so much. I'll give you everything back today. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand and tapped lightly on his head. Boom. There was a ripple in the air. Everyone felt as if something had happened, and it seemed like nothing had happened. Look at Bada again. In an instant, Bada turned into a phantom, and then out of the phantom, a strong man wearing a crown, a golden cloak, and a fiery red hair burning like a flame came out. The man was about 40 years old, and his whole body exuded an aura of dominance. The breath disappeared in a flash, and everyone came back to their senses, staring blankly at the man. Then there was shouting all around. Bada's little brother, looking at the changed Bada, was slightly taken aback, and then all knelt down on the ground. Your Majesty the King. Advertisement they all remembered. Who is the person in front of them if they are not their king? Although they only saw the king from afar when they were children. But the appearance of the king, they could never forget in their lifetime. This is their king of Bath. A king who is benevolent, kind, and loves the people like his son. How could they forget their king? Thinking of this, all the little brothers couldn't help crying. In the sound of messy footsteps, all the old people around surrounded him. They stared at Bada, the darkness in their eyes was gone, they were excited, and of course resentful. One of them, an old man who looked very prestigious, suddenly jumped over the crowd, rushed in front of Bada, grabbed Bada's lapel with both hands, and shouted loudly. You still know how to come back, you know how to come back. Bass, the kingdom of Bass is gone, why are you coming back? As he said that, he let go of his hands and fell to the ground, crying loudly. We thought our king of Bath, would never come back again. You be ******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* man do what he did and stood where he was, with extreme sadness on his face. Father. Leah looked at Bada, her eyes lit up, and her whole mind became clear. The shadow in his mind that was always hidden in the darkness gradually overlapped with Bada in front of him, and finally turned into Bada. At this moment, pictures of her getting along with her father flashed through her mind like a movie. I remembered everything. The man in front of me is her father who would cry when she thinks of it. Looking at Bada, Leah could no longer bear the excitement in her heart, stepped forward, hugged Bada tightly, tears kept pouring out of her eyes like a volcano, and quickly wet Bada a large chest. Bada stretched out his arms to hug Leah, his eyes turned red. To say when a person was considered completely dead. Was it when the heart was shot through? Wrong. Is it when you have an incurable disease? Wrong. Was it when he drank the poisonous mushroom soup? Wrong. It's time to be forgotten. Sorata looked at Bada and remembered this sentence. This guy didn't know what method he used to make the world forget him, thus creating an illusion of complete death. It was this illusion of being completely forgotten that allowed this guy to escape death. Advertisement Chapter 13 Death Will Bada held Leah in a daze for a while, then thought that Sorata and the others were still watching. This is not their bath hospitality, all right. He gently rubbed Leah's head and pulled her out of his arms. The guests are still watching. Leah's eyes were red and she left Bada's embrace with great reluctance. She stood on Bada's left side sensibly, and her hands were tightly grasping Bada's left hand, unwilling to let go no matter what. He was afraid that if he let go, Bada would disappear again. Forgetting an important person is really scary. It's like someone tearing off a piece of your heart, and she doesn't want to experience it anymore. Boss. Don't call me boss, you are dozens of years old, I can't bear it. Sorata hastily interrupted Bada. That's not okay, you'll be the boss for a lifetime. Bada stared at Sorata with a serious face. Didn't the boss recognize me as a little brother at the pier? He wanted to get Sorata's help, how could he let him leave the relationship? Are you guys really determined to eat me? Sorata looked at the serious Bada, but acted helplessly. I couldn't help but rolled my eyes. I said, you guys, please introduce yourself, I still don't know who you are. Bada's eyes swept over the old people around and the younger brother who was kneeling on the ground. Okay, you all get up first, didn't you agree to be the boss for a lifetime? Even if my identity changes, I'm still your boss. The younger brothers looked up at Bada in surprise. Although they also liked the king, they liked their boss even more. These few words of Bada let them understand that their boss is still the same boss, but their identity has changed. The smile in the man's bad eyes, the younger brothers all stood up. His Majesty, call the boss. Yes, yes, yes. Boss, I thought I couldn't call you boss anymore. That's right. Being your younger brother is the happiest thing in our life. As they spoke, they began to cry again. Okay. Man, you can't have so many tears. Advertisement. The younger brothers quickly wiped away their tears and kept nodding. Bada's gaze continued to look at those old people, and finally stopped at the old man on the ground in front of him. He bent down, pulled the old man up vigorously, patted the dust off the old man's body, and said to him, Uncle Clan, don't worry, since I'm back, I will definitely save the citizens. The clan uncle held Bada's hand, trembling all over, he wiped his eyes and stared at Bada's eyes. As long as you can come back, we believe that Bath will be fine. Although I don't know why you disappeared in the past 2 years and became another person, but we believe that you must be for us. Do whatever you want, we support you unconditionally. As he spoke, he glanced around, then looked towards the top of the cave. Although we are old, we don't want to die here. Well, I'm leaving tomorrow. Bada stared at the old man, a cold light flashed in his eyes. His time is indeed running out, even if there is no Sorata group coming, he will go to rescue the citizens of his kingdom of Bath in the last time. These 2 years of bounty hunter career, he had already found out that his nationals were being held there. Bada let go of the old man, straightened his clothes, and straightened the crown on his head. Looking at Sorata with a serious face. Bath Bada, the 25th king of the kingdom of Bath. Ha 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 ha. You guys are really a king. With a big belly, Awa walked up to Bada, reached out and patted his shoulder, with surprise on his face. The king can actually make such a low profile to the pirates for my little brother. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand to Bada, giving him a thumbs up, his face full of admiration. What a man. Boss, I'm not a real man, only someone as wise and powerful as you can be called a real man. Bada looked at Awa, and said extremely obscene words with an extremely serious expression. Sorata looked at Bada, the corner of her mouth twitched. Okay, Bada, tell me what happened to the kingdom of Bath. If you want to ask me for help, you have to tell me why. Okay, boss. I've said it all, don't call me the boss. Sorata couldn't help but yelled at Bada. Okay, boss. Advertisement. I said you be asterisk 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 D. Can you stop using this face full of justice and majesty to say obscene words? It's very embarrassing. Okay, boss. You, hey. Sorata stared at Bada, and suddenly, as if all her strength had been pumped out, her waist bent instantly, and her whole body became decadent. Does this guy really have to do this to this extent? You are the king of a country, he couldn't figure it out. But he could see the will to die in this guy's eyes. This guy is not going to ask GU. Sorata stroked her chin and thought for a while, then looked at Bada in surprise. You guys are not going to die, only a dying person would be so unscrupulous. Hearing what Sorata said, Bada was taken aback for a moment, and then, as if nothing happened, he turned his head to look at Leah, who was staring at him with concern, and stretched out his hand to gently peel off Leah's hand that was holding him. Although our kingdom of Bath has come to an end, it's not to the point where we can't afford to entertain guests. Leah, go and prepare a banquet with your uncles. Looking at the unmoved Leah, Bada couldn't help but aggravate his tone. Leah. Oh, Leah glanced at Sorata and the others, then turned around and went to prepare the banquet with the uncles around her. Bada turned his head to look at his younger brothers, a smile flashed across his serious face. You also go to help, go and take out all the base wine and curry, we are going to hold a grand banquet today. Okay, boss. The younger brothers were still very obedient, and walked towards a room inside after answering. Apparently, Bada did this because he didn't want other people to hear their conversation. Calical. Buzz Bada, how did you make me forget your existence? Indigo looked at Bada and chuckled. I remember 8 years ago, when I came to the kingdom of Bath, you still haven't eaten devil fruit. My fruit was only eaten 3 years ago. Several big brothers, please come here, I will tell you anything you want to know. As he spoke, he took the first step, walked towards the edge of the void, and stood beside a rectangular table. Seeing Sorata and the others coming, Bada stepped forward and opened the stools for Sorata and the others one by one, as if he was not a king, but a waiter. This guy showed signs of flattering Sorata and the others everywhere. I don't know what the big trouble is, let him look like a king, and make such a gesture. Sorata and the others are all very curious. After sitting down, Chi-Chi stared at Bada, waiting for his explanation. Chapter 14 Forgotten Fruit. Sorata looked at Bada and tore off the wine gourd around his waist. Cuckoo, gurgle, gurgle. He raised his head and took a few sips. Huh, there's a story, of course I'm going to have a drink. Bada sat down, looking at Sorata's wine gourd, a gleam flashed in his eyes. No wonder Sorata asked, bath wine, as soon as he came. He turned out to be an alcoholic. Alcoholic good, in this way, he will be more confident to ask Sorata and the others for help. He cleared his throat and said softly, I am a forgotten man, who ate the forgotten fruit, and I can make myself completely forgotten by the world. Then how did you become another person? Adao took a deep breath of the cigarette, stretched out his hand to hold the cigarette, shook the ash, and exhaled a smoke ring. Through the smoke ring, he squinted his eyes slightly, looked at Bada and asked, and this person is completely different from you, even the height is different. This is not a transformation ability, it's a whole other person. He is no longer the person who knew nothing about devil fruit. Although demon fruit power is properly developed, it can basically have several abilities, but these abilities are traceable subordinate relationships, not two completely different abilities. Obviously, Bada's ability to become another person can be regarded as another kind of ability. Bada crossed his hands on the table, frowning slightly. I don't know either. After eating the fruit ability, I can erase my own existence, and then I will become the badass outside. After a pause, there was a flash of thought in his eyes, and then he said, you can see me as a person shrouded in a phantom, and this phantom is like an armor, hiding my real body inside, so I completely disappeared from this world. Phantom? Sorata stared at Bada, her eyes fixed, so it can be turned into other things. Since it is a phantom, it cannot be limited to the human body. Can. Bada looked at Sorata and nodded his head. I use the ability on myself. Not only can I become another person, but also can be turned into a toy, this kind of humanoid object. It can only be a human-shaped thing, and other things can't. That's too powerful. Awa stared at Bada with bright eyes. Use it on yourself. Toy. Sorata touched her chin and thought for a while, her face gradually became serious. He looked up at Bada and asked, so you can still use your abilities on other people? This kind of ability reminded him of a person in the Mingo family, the Tongshu fruit, capable person, Santang. Advertisement. This is a very dangerous and evil fruit ability user. Okay. Bada looked at Sorata and nodded, paused, and said, Although I haven't used my ability on other people, I know that I can definitely use it on other people. If you can use it on other people, then your fruit ability is too dangerous. Sorata took a sip of wine. There are no restrictions. How could there be no limit? Bada looked at Sorata and suddenly smiled. Haha, boss, you don't think this thing can be used without restrictions? If there is no limit, then I am not invincible. Oh, Sorata leaned back on the chair, looked at Bada, and said curiously, tell me. You must first contact the opponent before you can activate the ability. Another requirement is that the opponent's armament hockey can't be too strong. If it's too strong, I can't activate the ability. The most important thing is that you can't be too far away from me. If you are too far away, the ability will be automatically released. Oh, is that so? Sorata's frown loosened. This guy's ability seems to be powerful, but for the strong, it is useless at all. But Tongshu fruit is different. That kind of unlimited bug level ability is the real danger. Directly erasing all traces of a person in this world is more painful than killing a person. Generally speaking, Bada's forgetting ability can be regarded as the subordinate ability of Tongshu fruit. Of course, since it is called the forgotten fruit, no one knows whether this guy can be developed in the future. The childlike fruit is so heaven-defying. What about the transformation ability? Can it be someone else? No, I can only become someone who has never appeared in this world. Oh, okay, let's not talk about your ability, it's useless except to escape. Sorata murmured while drinking. Maybe it can be used on the king of a country to subvert the country. That's all the rest. Why are you looking at me like that? Sorata suddenly felt a silence around her, and raised her head blankly to glance around. Calical, Captain, your idea is really dangerous. Indigo looked at Sorata and laughed, thinking to himself, as expected of the man who killed the golden lion, is he thinking about subverting the country? Calical. Advertisement. No, don't talk nonsense. Sorata quickly explained, I'm just talking casually, don't take it seriously. The three of Ahua nodded again and again. How could Sorata have such an idea? She must be drunk. Of course, these are all their jokes, they still know Sorata's character. Sorata has a lazy character, even if he is asked to be a king, he will not be a king. To ask why? Too tired. Seeing that Bada has been bowing his head in thought ever since he heard his words. Sorata couldn't help asking, what's the matter, Bada? You won't listen to me, really prepared to do that. Ha 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 ha, I'm just saying by the way, you can't take it seriously. A gleam flashed in Bada's eyes, and he raised his head with a serious face. I seem to know why the world government must remove Bath. Oh, by the way, after talking so much, I still don't know why Bath was destroyed. Sorata sat up straight, her face full of curiosity. Tell me quickly. It is good. Bada's chin rested on the back of his hand, memories flashed in his eyes. It all started with the annual Bath Wine Carnival in Bath 3 years ago. At the carnival 3 years ago, a celestial dragons came. Celestial dragons? Yes, the celestial dragons. Speaking of celestial dragons, Bada's eyes flickered coldly. The celestial dragons fell in love with Leah as soon as they came, and I happened to be not there at the time, so the celestial dragons men captured Leah. By the time I know it, it's time for the carnival to end. And my wife, Leah's mother, was killed when she prevented the celestial dragons from capturing Leah. Although 3 years have passed, whenever he thinks of his wife's death, he can't help but get tears in his eyes. He regretted it more than once. I regret why I was not with my wife and daughter at that time. As a result, his wife was killed and his daughter was arrested. It also caused her daughter to suffer so many inhuman tortures. Leah may never come out of the shadows for the rest of her life. Chapter 15 Deadly Bullet Holes. When hearing celestial dragons, this world bore. Sorata could already figure out what was going on. Tianlong must have taken a fancy to Leah's beauty. What a beast. Leah was only 14 or 15 years old 3 years ago. True lolicon. Celestial dragons are descendants of 19 of the 20 kings who formed the world government 800 years ago. They call themselves descendants of the creator and enjoy all privileges. Once offended, Marine Admiral or CP0 must come out to protect. So basically no one dares to resist the celestial dragons. As long as they violate the wishes of the celestial dragons, not only will they have bad luck, but their family members and even the country they live in may be destroyed. These guys are a bunch of stupid pigs raised by the entire world government. They have no fear. Not only do they think they're gods, but they actually live in the world like gods. They look down on any ordinary people and treat all ordinary people as slaves. These guys are also the biggest slave owners in the world. These guys can also take whoever they fancy as their spouse, and throw it away as soon as they get tired of playing. Presumably this is how Leah was spotted by celestial dragons. Sorata looked at Bada, raised her hand, and took a sip of her wine. Well, let's talk. Since Leah was captured by celestial dragons, how did you rescue Leah? Bada came back to his senses, stunned for a moment, and then said, after I got the news, the celestial dragon's ship has already set sail. But this guy is out to play, so the ship's sailing is not fast, and I used the transformation ability attached to the fruit to mix into the celestial dragon's ship. By the time I found Leah, it was too late. Of course Sorata knows the nature of celestial dragons. Since they are captured, they will of course be marked as slaves. As for whether they have been violated, Leave it to the individual to think about it. Well, it's late. Speaking of this, Bada suddenly burst into tears. It's painful. No one can remain indifferent after seeing their daughter being tortured. Everyone looked at Bada with a heavy face. Even if you haven't seen the species of celestial dragons, you must have heard of it. As for Kuina, who has been reading newspapers for a long time, she knows the cruelty of celestial dragons. So pity flashed in her eyes. She couldn't even imagine how desperate a 14 or 15-year-old girl would be if she was captured by celestial dragons. Advertisement thinking of this, murderous intent appeared in her eyes. Bada reached out to wipe away the tears on his face. Sorry, can't help it. It's okay, it's human nature. If it were me, I would definitely kill the celestial dragons. Sorata looked at Bada with a calm face and an indifferent tone. Bada was taken aback by the murderous aura emanating from Sorata, and then he clenched his hands into fists, and the veins in his arms burst out. I've thought about killing celestial dragons, of course. As he said that, he suddenly relaxed all over, as if his whole body was pulled away, and said in a low tone. But when I think of the entire Bath Kingdom, I can't do anything about it. Sorata was taken aback for a moment, and didn't ask any further questions. If you are not in your position, you will not seek your job. He is not Bada, he is Sorata. Anyway, if it were him, he would not only kill celestial dragons, but also kill all forces related to celestial dragons. This is the confidence brought by strength. If he was an ordinary person, he might not have such thoughts. So he didn't despise or ridicule Bada's approach and plan, but admired him very much. Behind this guy is not just one person or a few people, but tens of thousands of people. Really kill celestial dragons, these people have to die. Then you rescued Princess Leia, how did the kingdom of Bath collapse? Indigo looked at Bada, and said suspiciously. There is more, with your strength, how could these pirates and bounty hunters destroy Base Island like this? Bada is the one who was actively invited by the Golden Lion to board the ship. Just look at Sorata to know the Golden Lion's vision. As he spoke, he glanced at Sorata, and murmured in his heart. The same was invited, but also rejected, one became a loser in life, and the other killed the Golden Lion, completely becoming a strong man. Thinking about it, he couldn't help shaking his head, it's really the same body, different fate. Is it the Kingdom of Bath? Bada rubbed his chin in thought for a while. By the time I come back with Leia, the Kingdom of Bath has already been broken by CP0 and Marine. And I was also wounded in the battle with members of the World Government Spy Organization, a few people known as CP0. This also forced me to use my ability to erase myself, so as to protect the rest of Bath. As for the pirates on Base Island now, as he spoke, he slowly opened his shirt, revealing his majestic chest. He reached out his hand to touch a place on his heart that had been scarred for a long time, looked up at Sorata and said, this scar is left from the battle with CP0. Advertisement follow Bass's hand down, and take a closer look, the scar is not big, but very deep, even if the scar is formed, it looks like it was dug out by something. Even this scar is healed now, with your strength, it's impossible to be destroyed with a single shot. Indigo looked at the scar, and the doubt on his face didn't dissipate, but intensified instead. Of course it's not that simple. Don't look at the scars, but inside the scars. What's going on inside? The bullet inside hasn't been taken out yet. Indigo looked at the scar, and his face gradually became clear. Ordinary bullets may not be too deadly to the strong, but if special bullets with armed colors are attached, they will be fatal. It can't be taken out, or it can't be taken out. He has to figure out this point. He is a doctor himself, and there is still a difference between these 2 points. If it can't be taken out, it should be because the doctor's medical skills are not superb enough, which is not too much trouble. If you can't take it, it will be troublesome. Can't take it. Bada buttoned his buttons and looked up at Sorata. That's why I can't get rid of the pirates on Base Island. The bullet from the gunshot wound in my heart is a special bullet from the world government. There is a small bomb inside. As long as I use my strength, even if I am too emotional, it will completely detonate this time bomb. This makes me have the strength, but I dare not do it. As he spoke, a cold light flashed in his eyes, then he stood up, walked in front of Sorata, and knelt down slowly. Sorata looked at Bada, didn't say anything, and didn't reach out. One person endured for 3 full years for his beliefs, for the country, and for the people. He didn't know how this guy resisted the impulse in his heart and didn't go to save his people immediately. But this guy is definitely not greedy for life and afraid of death, so there must be a reason why he has to endure it. As a result, this guy did not act for a long time. Looking at the hundreds of children around him, he gradually understood. Is it for the future of Bath? If he really died, then these children. He dare not think. Then Bada must not dare to think about it. Boom, the sound is not loud, but it is shocking. Chapter 16. It is better to be less sad. Hey, there's no need to do this step. Everyone looked at Bada with shocked expressions on their faces. This guy is not the bounty hunter Bada I just met on the island, but the king of the kingdom of Base Bada. Bada ignored the others, he only had Sorata in his eyes now. Boss. The younger brothers who went to get the wine saw their boss kneeling in front of Sorata as soon as they came out, and thought something was wrong. Hastily put down the wine jar in his hand, grabbed the weapon and rushed over. You guy, have you finally shown your true colors? A pirate is a pirate. If you want to hurt the boss, you have to pass our level first. Speaking of which, the younger brothers raised their guns at Sorata one after another. Gudu. Sorata ignored the younger brothers who came around, put down the wine gourd, looked down at Bada. The corners of her mouth curled up, and a smile appeared on her face. You be asterisk 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 D. You have to have a priority when you hire people to do things. How can anyone recognize someone as the boss from the moment they come up, and let the boss do things for the younger brother? As he spoke, the smile on his face disappeared, and a strong aura rose up, making Bada's younger brothers break out in cold sweat uncontrollably. However, the younger brothers did not take half a step back, but took a step forward. Or, do you think I'm really a good old man, and I will help you when I see misfortune? Stop joking, okay? I want to help someone, but I can't just force it. Sorata. Kuina looked at Sorata and couldn't help but speak. For Bada, especially Leah, she is very sympathetic. Sorata waved her hand, interrupting Kuina's next words. Then the aura on his body receded. He stretched out his hand to pat Bada on the shoulder, and laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha, you guy, although the way you do it is a little simple and rough, but it's really not annoying. Although I can't be a person like you, I appreciate you very much. No matter what, as long as it's not such a stupid thing as killing the whole world, boss. As he spoke, he stood up, and controlled a jar of base wine, to fly over from the air. Slap open the top cover with a slap. Lift it up, look up and take a few big mouthfuls. Goo goo. He had wanted to drink the famous bath wine for a long time, but when he saw the wine jar, he couldn't help it when he became addicted to alcohol. Huh, cool, advertisement. Then he turned his head to meet Bada's gaze, since I've all drank your wine. He shrugged as he said, I can't help it, just say it, I promise you anything. But, you have to get up before you talk. He looked left and right. Look, you little brothers, you wish you could swallow me alive. It's terrible. As he spoke, he sat back on the chair, put the wine jar on the table, stretched out his hand to grab Bada's shoulder, and lifted him up to lift him up. Don't just kneel down. Man, kneel to the sky and kneel to your parents. You don't need to kneel for anything else. Life is so big, I haven't lived to understand it. Ha 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 ha. Bada took advantage of the situation and stood up, looking at Sorata, with the most sincere smile on his face since he saw Sorata tonight. Ha ha. The boss taught me the lesson. It's my younger brother who is ignorant. Little brother punishes himself with 3 cups. As he said that, he was going to get the wine jar in front of Sorata. Well, what are you doing? Sorata grabbed the wine jar and squinted at Bada with a protective expression on his face. Bada's outstretched hand stopped in the air, neither advancing nor retreating. It was embarrassing. At this moment, one of Bada's younger brothers was clever. Seeing the embarrassment of his boss, he hurriedly took a wine jar from behind, and walked over. Boss. What? Liquor. Bada turned around, took the wine, and cast a sensible look at the little boy. Seeing the younger brothers around him still holding guns, he hurriedly shouted loudly. What are you doing with your weapons? Didn't you see that I want to drink with the boss? Go away, it's annoying. Ha ha. What the boss said is, let's get out now, get out now. The younger brothers already knew that it was a misunderstanding just now, so they quickly put away their weapons and stepped back to help arrange the banquet in the middle. I saw that the open space in the middle was already full of food at this time. Hundreds of children, or talking loudly, or laughing, or helping to carry food. They were very obedient and sensible, and no one ate a piece of food without an adult's mouth. It hurts to be sensible. Bada looked at the hundreds of children in the middle, his eyes flashed the tenderness unique to the king of a country. Looking at these children, he seemed to see the future of the Bath Kingdom. No matter how humble he is, he must bring the kingdom of Bath back to life. Advertisement only, he may not see that day. Thinking of this, he couldn't help touching his chest, his eyes suddenly flashed cold, and he was extremely sad. Damn bullets, damn world government. Why, showing such sad emotions again? Me. I can't bear to see other people showing such emotions in front of me. Because someone once said that no matter how the world changes, we must move forward and live every day well. In fact, life is not in vain. So it's fine to feel sad once in a while, don't be sad all the time. Sorata picked up the wine and took a sip. Then control a few jars of wine and fly to the 3 of Ahua and Indigo. Try it, you all, it's really delicious. No wonder this wine is famous as Grand Line. He couldn't help but take another sip as he spoke. This wine is not as full of alcohol as ordinary wine, nor is it as flat as rum, but has a unique coldness. And the coldness of the drink makes people feel warm instead of cold. This is strange. I think it is the unique terrain here that can make such a unique bar. After drinking, he put the wine jar on the table and pushed it in front of Kuina. He knew that Kuina didn't like the taste of wine very much, but she would definitely like this wine. Drink and see. Sorata looked at Kuina expectantly, like a child sharing candy with a best friend. Kuina looked at Sorata, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. He picked up the wine jar, put it to his mouth, and took a sip gently. Even with the wine jar in hand, the elegance of red wine can be seen. As expected of an elegant swordsman. Seeing the blush flashing across Kuina's face, Sorata quickly asked, is it delicious? Kuina put down the wine jar and smiled lightly. The laughter was like a silver bell, which made people have a magic power to calm down slowly. He looked at Sorata and said softly, it's delicious, cold and warm. Is it so delicious? The 3 of Ahua looked at Kuina and said it was delicious, and couldn't help it immediately, grabbed the jar, lifted it up, and poured it vigorously. 3 3 beeps in a row, and then all together. Cool, seeing everyone's love for bath wine. Bada also had a smile on his face. He looked at the crowd with a hint of pride in his eyes. He is proud that his wine can conquer Sorata's group, and of course he is also glad that he met Sorata before he died. Chapter 17. The world is just like this. Okay, let's talk, what's the matter? Sorata leaned back on the chair and looked at Bada. Bada carried the wine jar, walked back to the original chair, and sat down. He slapped the wine jar away first, gurgling. Cough cough cough. Ha 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 ha. It's been a long time since I drank like this, sorry, boss. Bada, blushing, put down the wine jar, stared at Sorata, and laughed. Actually, it's not a big deal. After I rescue the citizens, can I ask you to lend us your pirate flag? Want our shelter? Sorata raised the wine jar and took a sip. But our reputation is not enough to protect a kingdom. I believe in you, I believe in you. Bada stared at Sorata and said seriously, I believe you will become the world's top pirate group. Oh, Sorata looked at Bada, the corner of her mouth curled up. Being recognized is a joyful thing in itself. He didn't know that this was actually perceived by Bada, and Sorata had the courage to be invincible in the world. This courage is so powerful, if this kind of people can't do it, no one can do it. Ha 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 ha, I thought it was something, Gudu. Sorata put down the wine jar, stared at Bada, and said seriously, okay, I can promise you. Huh, just when Bada breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. Sorata spoke again, but Bada quickly raised his head and asked, but what? As long as there are any conditions, I can accept them, even if the kingdom of Bath has nothing to give you, please believe that the future of Bath. Well, it's not a condition. Sorata patted the wine jar, remuneration or something. Didn't you give it? Ha 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 ha, Sorata laughed, put her hands on the table, leaned forward, put her head on the back of her hands, and stared at Bada. What I want to say is that the future of the kingdom of Bath can only be entrusted to you. Advertisement. After hearing this, Bada was stunned, lowered his head, and looked at his chest, but me? I'm almost unable to suppress the bullet in my heart. When I go to save the people this time, it should be the time of my death. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid that after my death, there will be no strong people to protect the citizens. I said that if there is you in the future of the kingdom of Bath, there must be you. Sorata looked at Bada, smiled lightly and said, isn't it just a bullet? Although this thing may not work for most people in this world, but for me, it's just for children. Sorata waved her hand very Versailles. What? Hearing Sorata's words, Bada quickly raised his head and stared at Sorata excitedly. Boss, you mean, you can help me take out the bullet? After speaking, he looked at Sorata expectantly. Although he was ready to die long ago, who doesn't want to live? He also wants to build Bath himself, watch these children grow up in person, and accompany Leah in person. Okay. Sorata didn't keep Bada waiting, and nodded in affirmation. Ha 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 ha. Seeing Sorata's nod, Bada couldn't hold back anymore and burst out laughing. Laughing and laughing, the guy started crying again, crying like a child. No one knew how much he wanted to personally end the lives of these pirates on Base Island in recent years. No one knew how much he wanted to welcome the people of Bath back these few years. No one knew how he survived the countless nights in the past few years. He endured humiliation, he was obscene, he was extremely afraid of death, and he knelt down more than once. Just for that one morsel of food, that one morsel feeds the hundreds of skinny children and those hundreds of uncles who are supposed to provide for their lives in this endless dark cave. What? Crying and crying, he raised the wine jar and drank it in a big gulp. What he drank was wine, but also tears, and it was his powerlessness as a king against Bath. Sorata looked at Bada quietly and smiled slightly. This guy, ever since I met him, there has been a feeling of death. Just like a terminally ill person, it looks like nothing on the surface, but inside, it is decayed. To make this guy shine again, not only must he break his expectation of death. Sorata leaned back, watching the lights on the dome. I want to break the celestial dragons, the shackles of the world government. This world is like this for most people. It is neither glamorous nor amusing, but full of cruelty. He didn't expect that when they arrived at the first island of the Grand Line, they would encounter such a miserable country. Advertisement. It is known from the known. The celestial dragons took a fancy to Bada's daughter, Ba-Ria, and kidnapped her back. And Bada's wife was killed by the celestial dragon's men during the obstruction. After Bada got the news, the celestial dragons had already left. He had to temporarily abandon his wife's funeral and hurried out to sea to chase the celestial dragons. Although he finally caught up and rescued his daughter, but the daughter has been marked as a slave of the celestial dragons. However, for Bada, this pain is just the beginning. What made him even more desperate was that when he returned to Bath with his daughter full of scars, Bath was actually breached by the marine and world government, and the whole kingdom fell into a sea of flames and ruins. This guy had no time to be sad, so he could only join the battlefield, but unfortunately he was unable to do what he wanted, and was defeated by the world government spy organization CPO, leaving him with a fatal scar that would kill him at any time. Seeing the fire engulfed the entire Bath, Bada, who was seriously injured, had to use his ability to make himself disappear and prevent the enemy from finding him. From then on, the kingdom of Bath was destroyed, and Bath Bada disappeared from people's memory forever, as if it had never appeared before. Sorata turned her head to look at the children laughing in the distance, and recovered with a heavy heart. The world is like this. Where there is light, there is darkness. And darkness is often invisible to people. The only way to protect these skinny people is to let them all live in the spotlight. World government also needs face. He has already thought of how to help the country. Feeling better, Sorata grabbed the wine jar on the table, raised her head and drank. Boom, Sorata put down the wine jar, looked at Bada, and said with a smile, okay, don't cry, people who are dozens of years old don't feel ashamed. To save the kingdom of Bath, you must first save the admirable king of Bath in front of you. I didn't cry. Bada wiped his tears and said stubbornly, it's just sand in the eyes. Ha 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 ha, yes, you didn't cry. Ha 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 ha, okay. We all know that in this underground space, flying sand is flying all over the sky. Awa pushed the frame of the mirror, stared at Bada with a flushed face, and said solemnly, look, I'm in tears. Ha 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 ha. As he spoke, he couldn't help laughing out loud. The laughter of the few of them was like the wind, blowing across the entire underground space in an instant, making the whole space happy. Everyone laughed together. Those who have never given up hope in the abyss of despair deserve to laugh all the time, not to be sad. Chapter 18 The Real Truth. Just in the huge space under Winter Island, laughing with hope. In the royal palace on Spring Island, there is a swearing-in meeting. Be it the pirates, human traffickers, or bounty hunters on Base Island, they all gathered in the palace on Spring Island. Let the whole palace be full of tyranny and lawlessness. In these breaths, and the few figures on a sofa at the top of the palace are the most powerful. They are. Has Pig's Knuckles, the leader of the Pig's Knuckle Pirates with a bounty of 70 million berry. The captain of the Berserk Pirates with a bounty of 55 million berry, Kirby Berserk. And in the first half of the Grand Line, both count the well-known famous bounty hunter, Black Gun. These guys gathered here just to deal with Sorata. The bounty of 500 million is enough for them to squander for a long time. This is also the motivation for them to form alliances and fight against the enemy together. Has Pig's Feet, a tall man with a huge black bristle hat, spoke first. Sorata and his gang offer a total reward of 530 million berry. Excitement and bloodlust flashed in his eyes. I don't care if he killed the Golden Lion or the Silver Lion. It's just a kid who just went to sea. There are so many of us, it's easy to take him down. As he spoke, he grabbed a jug of wine in an extremely arrogant manner, raised his head and drank it. Yes. Isn't it just a kid who just went to sea? Kill him, and our reward will increase by a lot. Wearing a big cloak and a long knife hanging from his waist, Kirby Berserk had a face full of madness. What the captain said is true. It's just a bunch of brats. It's too early to play pirate games. Ha 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 ha. The room was immediately filled with wild laughter. And amidst the loud laughter, there are also some people who can't laugh at all. These people were stunned by Sorata's Conqueror's hockey at the pier before, and then were robbed of food and money by Bada's gang. Although they didn't know why they fainted all of a sudden, they knew that it must be Sorata's gang. Can make so many of them faint silently. This kind of monster, even if there are powerful Pig's Feet pirates and mad sword pirates, they will feel a little scared. Just when they were in a daze, other people around them hurriedly pulled them to eat and drink. Advertisement, ha ha ha. You guys are not scared stupid by the silver-haired group, are you? Aren't they just a bunch of brats? There are Captain Pig's Knuckles and Captain Kwangjan, and the silver-haired group is the meat on our table. We can eat whatever we want. As they spoke, they glanced at the black gun and swallowed. And there is also Lord Heichang, who has shot and killed more than one pirate with a reward of hundreds of millions. Obviously these two guys have never heard of the Golden Lion. After all, Golden Lion was active 20 years ago. The only ones who can know the horror of the Golden Lion are the old pirates, marines, and those forces with certain strength. Ha ha ha. We are worrying too much. After listening to the words of their companions, these pirates took another look at the three big figures sitting in the first place, suppressed the fear in their hearts, and turned their eyes to look fierce. Yes. With Mr. Heichang, Mr. Zhujiao, Mr. Kwangjan, and so many of them, what are they afraid of? With so many of them, even Marine couldn't easily annihilate them. Think here. They laughed loudly, mixed into the crowd, and started to eat and drink wildly. The whole body was covered in black robes, and even the black gun with a black and white mask on his face did not pay attention to the two pirates. Although these two guys are so crazy, they are actually just two low-level pirates who only dare to dominate the first island. Heichang gracefully raised the goblet, shook it lightly, raised it to his mouth, and opened his mouth to take a sip. Then put it down gently, took out a handkerchief and wiped his lips. Then the wine on the table was never touched again. Obviously this guy is not used to drinking the low-grade rum of these pirates. He didn't speak, just sat there quietly, looking at the pirates around. His eyes flashed with extreme indifference, just like looking at a group of dead people. And the pirates around him didn't dare to disturb him, not even the captains of the two pirate groups. Obviously these pirates all know the horror of the black gun. However, what they didn't know was that the black gun they were afraid of was panicking at this moment. He is actually a member of CP0, a member of the world government's espionage group. Advertisement: it was he who attacked and wounded Bada 3 years ago, which quickly ended the Battle of the Kingdom of Bath at that time. Otherwise, how could base be so easily destroyed? Their team came to Bath 3 years ago to track down the forgotten fruit. Who knew that it was a step too late, and the forgotten fruit was finally eaten by the king here, Bada. Just eat it. They took advantage of the situation and sent an invitation to Bada, wanting to invite this guy to join their CP0 so as to work for the world government. Forgotten fruit is not just the ability to make oneself be forgotten. His previous master was the old man of their spy organization who had been helping the world government secretly. If the old man hadn't died suddenly during the mission, the forgotten fruit would not have appeared in the sea. They had no choice but to search everywhere like a needle in a haystack, and finally, from the powerful intelligence of the world government, they knew exactly that the forgotten fruit fell in the kingdom of Bath. After Bada refused to join them without hesitation, they were all ready to go back and report to Shangtu. After all, the kingdom of Bath is a member country of the world government, and they have no right to force Bada. But at this time, they suddenly received the task of protecting celestial dragons. This celestial dragons happened to be traveling to the kingdom of Bath, and the CP0 member responsible for protecting this celestial dragons was their chief. And their chief obviously knew what the celestial dragons were. So the celestial dragons accidentally met the princess, Bathlia, of the kingdom of Bath. Their original plan was to let the celestial dragons capture Bathria, thereby coercing Bada to join them. Who knew that celestial dragons would be so stupid that they suddenly ordered their subordinates to kill Bada's wife? This sudden shooting completely disrupted their plans. No way, they can only escort the celestial dragons away first. They know the horror of Bada. As for why the kingdom of Bath was destroyed in the end, of course, this guy attacked the celestial dragons they were protecting in a very unreasonable manner. Although the celestial dragons were fine in the end, they were quite frightened. This allowed the world government to find an excuse to eliminate base. Since the forgotten fruit is such a dangerous fruit, since it cannot be obtained, it will be ruined and the next one will be found. And Bada did not expect that the world government would do it so decisively and quickly. While he was still slowly rushing to Bath, the world government held an emergency meeting and completely removed the kingdom of Bath on the grounds that the kingdom of Bath had not paid the heavenly gold. And before the meeting, the world government notified the marine base near Bath Island, and coordinated with the CP organization that arrived quickly. They went to Bath first. And how can the bad boats be as fast as the boats of marine and world government? So before Bada rushed back, they wiped out the defense force of the Bath Kingdom. Chapter 19. They are all gentle guys. Not long after Sorata and his gang landed on Base Island, a picture of Bada suddenly appeared in He Chang's mind. He knew it must be because Bada had revoked his ability, and he planned to fight them desperately. He quickly contacted his superior CP0 organization, and then stayed here to host the alliance. 3 years ago, they didn't know what was missing from their minds. But they will not forget the forgotten fruit, and they will not forget the process of finding the forgotten fruit. From some materials, I know that there is such a person as Buzz Bada, and I also know the existence of Bada. This guy was shot by him back then, and he endured it for so many years, but suddenly he couldn't bear it anymore, so he must have found a backer. To be honest, he is not afraid of Bada now. Even if this guy recovers, it's impossible to clean up his bullets. The world government special bullets are so easy to get out, and it won't be a secret weapon. And the guy was shot in the chest. Thinking about it, his strength must have dropped drastically. Such a badass is definitely not their CP0 opponent. It is Sorata that he is afraid of. Silver-haired Sorata, going to sea is the pinnacle. The initial reward was 70 million. It took only a few days for Marine and the world government to increase the reward, reaching an unprecedented 500 million, and this 500 million is obviously not the final reward. He is a member of the world's largest intelligence organization. Of course he knows the horror of the Golden Lion. Even though he is old, it is not something ordinary Vice Admiral can deal with. And it wasn't easy for Admiral to catch this guy. Don't think that Golden Lion is easy to catch because he is old, but it is because he is old that he is difficult to catch. You must know that a top figure in the sea, even when he is dying, will explode with devastating power. But Sorata was lucky and killed Golden Lion directly. Looking at the fighting scene, it seems that the fight is still under pressure. From the known information, Sorata's fruit ability is the most terrifying ability. Space fruit ability. Teleport. What a terrifying ability this is. In the whole world, there are not many fruits with space ability, especially the ability to teleport people. As a member of CP0, He Chang naturally knew that the silver-haired teleportation did not have any unnecessary movements at all. It is almost impossible to guard against. If the observation hockey is weak, or the reaction speed is slow, when meeting the silver hair, it is very likely to be killed in seconds. These people can't even escape, because this guy's ability seems to be able to ignore obstacles and penetrate objects directly. Advertisement in this guy is also a strong man who is not weak in All Conquerors hockey, and a strong man who can have a place in New World just by the strength of the great swordsman. Thinking of this, the body of the black gun hidden under the black robe couldn't help shaking. I only hope that Marine and CP0 can send strong players this time. Otherwise, depending on the strength of these few of them. I dare not think about it. After thinking about it, he suddenly stood up. What's wrong? Black gun. Hospig's feet saw He Chang stand up abruptly, and his drinking hand froze. It's okay, I'll go out and take a look at Sorata's boat. Ha 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 ha. You guys are not trying to escape. Haas Zhujiao looked at the black gun and laughed. Smiling and laughing, he suddenly stopped moving, looking at the black muzzle of the gun in front of him, his red face quickly turned white. Haha. Just kidding. He Chang raised his gun and pointed it at Has Pig's knuckles, his eyes were cold. If you want to die early, I will fulfill you. With that, he was about to pull the trigger and shoot Has Pigfoot. Feeling the killing intent of the black gun, Has Zhujiao quickly put down the wine jar and begged for mercy softly. Master He Chang, I was just joking, you don't plan to let me go. Besides, aren't we forming an alliance now? Although he doesn't believe that the black gun can kill him in seconds, but after all, the name of the person, the shadow of the tree, this guy has killed many hundreds of millions of pirates. Black gun wouldn't have allied with them if it wasn't for dealing with silver hair Sorata. He Chang looked at Has Pig's knuckle for a while, but in the end he didn't shoot. Although these guys are not strong enough, they're still somewhat useful. At least they can slow down Sorata's footsteps, and let their CP0 prepare for a while. There was no time to waste with these guys, he had to hurry to the nearby island where the citizens of the Kingdom of Bath were imprisoned, meet Marine and CP0, and get ready to wait for Sorata and Bada to arrive. Now that Bada has recovered, he will definitely save his people. At that time, whether it is fighting Sorata or Bada, they're fully prepared. Unlike on Base Island, they are not prepared here. Thinking of this, he quickly retracted his gun, put his back on his back, and walked quickly outside. Advertisement thinking that Sorata might come over at any moment, he couldn't help speeding up. He doesn't want to face such a scary guy with silver hair by himself. Watching the black gun gradually going away, Has Pig's knuckles quickly reached out and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He was indeed a little carried away just now, forgetting that He Chang is not someone he can easily offend. It wasn't until the figure of He Chang disappeared that he suddenly leaned back and collapsed on the sofa. Then he grabbed the wine jar and took several sips ferociously. He didn't stop until his face became rosy again. Ha ha ha, little ones, let's continue. When there is news, let the silver-haired kid go to God, and we will take his bounty and be happy. Ha 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 ha, pirates are pirates. 1 second they were terrified to death, and the next second they became rampant. I don't know if these guys can be so arrogant after seeing Sorata. It must be interesting to think about it, Winter Island, in the huge space deep underground. The banquet is over. There were many people lying on the ground. The old people were leaning against the corner, smoking, chatting and farting, as if they were not in the desperate place under Winter Island, but sitting under the eaves basking in the sun. They looked at Bada, with hope shining in their eyes. Their king has returned. They believed in Bada, and believed that he would bring them back to the prosperity of the Bath Kingdom. They looking forward to, and on the ground in the middle, the children fell asleep with a smile on their swollen bellies they touched. And judging from the tear stains in the corners of their eyes, it is obvious that these little guys, even if they are happy and full, they will not be so beautiful in their dreams. After all, for them, all their relatives are gone. I only hope that when these little guys wake up, the Kingdom of Bath has been restored to its original state. Even if this is an extravagant wish, it is still hope. And Bath's younger brothers carefully carried the children one by one to the rooms around the space. Obviously, even though everyone was very happy and drank a lot, they didn't forget to take these little guys to bed and cover them with quilts. They are all gentle guys. Chapter 20 How to Treat. After drinking and eating, Sorata looked at Bada and stood up. His body shook for a moment, his eyes flashed red, observation hockey swept across the entire Winter Island in an instant, and then swept towards Liberty. No, they are drinking here. If the Liberty is destroyed by pirates, it will be terrible. Fortunately, except for some small flies, I didn't feel any other breath. What? Just when he was about to withdraw his sense of knowledge, suddenly a dark aura that was different from the arrogance of pirates broke into his observation hockey. This breath is different from everyone on the island, so it must not be a pirate, nor can it be a bounty hunter. Then there is only one possibility. World Government CP Organization. Sorata rubbed her chin and thought for a while, but still didn't plan to pay attention to this guy. Since he is from World Government, he will naturally see him tomorrow. He blushed slightly and looked at Bada. Hey, are you drunk? Not drunk, go find a room and take the bullet out of your heart. Bada was confused for a moment, then quickly stood up, shaking his head non-stop until his mind cleared up, then looked at Sorata with a flushed face, and spoke excitedly. No, not drunk. Hearing that Sorata was going to help him fetch the bullet, how could he bear it? The slightly drunk mind was instantly cleared by the excitement. Leah, who was sitting next to Bada, quickly stood up, stretched out her hand, and supported Bada to prevent him from falling to the ground. Father. I'm fine. Bada waved his hand and rubbed Leah's head. At this time, Leah has put on the long dress of the princess again. She is dressed in a white and holy princess dress, which makes Leah exude a noble, elegant and gentle atmosphere. With this outfit, plus a pretty face and a slender figure, it's no wonder that celestial dragons, as soon as they see it, they can't wait to put it in the house immediately. Let's go. Don't look at the simplicity here, but there is also an infirmary. Bada took Leah's hand and walked towards the door with a red cross painted inside. Let's go. Let's go together. Sorata followed with her hands in her sleeves. Kuina quickly followed and stood on Sorata's right. Behind Kuina, the three of Ahua also shook their heads quickly, stood up unsteadily, grabbed the weapon leaning against the table, hung it on their waist, and followed. Last but not least is Indigo. Indigo laughed, drank the wine in the glass in front of him unhurriedly, and then stood up. Advertisement stepping on a fart like, puff, puff, followed. He looked at Sorata with a twinkle of curiosity in his eyes. Although I know that Sorata's ability is amazing, but it's not enough to help people heal. Even he could do nothing about Bada's injury. It was like the golden lion's rudder, it would kill him if he moved it. The wound on Bada's body went deep into the heart, and it can be said that it was heavier than that of Golden Lion. The golden lion's rudder still has some life left. The bomb is different. It explodes immediately when it is moved, which is extremely deadly. So he was curious about Sorata's method of taking bullets. Standing at the door of the infirmary, Bada paused for a moment, then pushed open the door without hesitation. Although he didn't know why Sorata took out the bullet, he could feel that Sorata didn't lie, but just showed a careless look. It was like a minor surgery for the bullet in his chest. The infirmary is not big, only dozens of square meters. There is only one operating table and a few tables, and even less medicine. Only some common anti-inflammatory cold medicines can be seen on one of the tables. Thinking about it, Bada worked so hard to get these from the pirates. Even dry dark red bloodline can be seen on some vials. I saw Bada come in. Behind the innermost table, an old man in a white doctor's uniform stood up quickly. Your Majesty, why did you come here? Do you want sober medicine? The old man obviously misunderstood. He hurried around the table and walked towards another table. Wait, I'll find it for you right now. Lieber, it's okay, you don't need to search. Bada hurried forward and grabbed the old man. The old man looked at Bada with a puzzled face. Didn't he come to find a cure for the hangover, could it be? As he spoke, his whole body trembled, and he stared at Bada in horror. No, no, your gunshot wound is about to explode. After speaking, he tightly grasped Bada's arm, terrified. It turned out that this old man was the doctor who helped Bada stop the wound 3 years ago, and he was also the imperial doctor of the original Bath Kingdom. After Bath was injured, the first person to find him was this doctor. What gunshot wound? Advertisement. After Leah heard this, she stepped forward quickly and looked at Bada closely, her face full of nervousness. She didn't know about Bada's injury. When Bada came back with her, he hid her here, and then she lost Bada's memory, and she didn't know why she appeared here. As more and more people came, she gradually stopped caring about it. It's okay, it's just an old injury. Bada looked at Leah and Lieber, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he said with a smile, and it will be healed soon, don't worry. As he spoke, he turned and looked at Sorata and the others who walked in, waiting for his order. Sorata ignored Leah and Lieber's curious gazes, and walked past them to the operating table. Simple, just a bed with a lamp hanging on it, not as good as the operating table in their infirmary on the Liberty. He turned around and looked at Bada. Come on, oh. Bada quickly broke away from Leah and Lieber's hands, and walked over quickly. Take off your shirt and lie down. Bada followed suit and took off his shirt slowly. It wasn't until this time that I saw that the guy's back was covered with wounds. Looking at the traces of these scars, it should have been left 3 years ago. The biggest wound was the size of a fist. You can tell at a glance that it was left by a fist. It seems that there is a very powerful gymnastics master in CP0. Bada ignored the strange gazes around him, quickly climbed onto the bed, lay down, and looked at Sorata expectantly. Leah and Lieber quickly gathered around, staring at Sorata with nervous faces. Especially Lieber. He's the only one here who knows exactly what Bada's injury is. If there is any ability in this world to save Bada, he believes that there must be, but he knows that there must be no. But since Bada believed in this silver-haired kid, he had no choice but to believe in Sorata, believing that he was the one who could save Bada whom he didn't know. Sorata glanced at Leah and smiled slightly. Don't be nervous. To me, your father's injury is just a minor injury, it's not a big deal. You can step back a little and don't be affected by that time. Oh, seeing Sorata's gentle face, Leah felt relieved for some reason, her face flushed, she stepped back quickly, and stood beside Kuina. But Lieber didn't back down, he wanted to see for himself how Sorata healed Bada. Chapter 21 It's a Good Life. Sorata glanced at Lieber, but said nothing. The space field is activated instantly. He looked at Bada and said, if you feel any discomfort, don't resist, just relax and leave it to me. With that said, he pushed his field to ultimate. Around Sorata's body, an invisible space appeared, completely enveloping the bodies of Bada and Lieber. From the outside, the surroundings of Sorata seem to be another space, and everything is still. It's like time pauses. And Sorata drew the knife quickly, and chopped on Bada's chest with one blow, just cutting open his gunshot wound. Father. Watching Sorata draw her sword, Leah couldn't help but take a step forward, but she was frozen in place just as she took a step forward. It can actually do this step. Indigo's pupils contracted rapidly, he looked at Leah, then turned to stare at Sorata, his eyes filled with shock. And the Kuina 4 will be much more normal, they have already met. When Leah rushed in, Sorata froze for a moment, but was not affected. Leah is too weak. If you are strong, you will be in trouble. His field can stop anything from flowing, but it also depends on the power of the object. The stronger a person is, the more vigorous his life force is, and the more difficult it is to remain still. So unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not use this trick. Sorata's eyes were filled with nebula, staring at Bada's wound, a large bullet 5 centimeters long with a rusty tip slowly rising from the wound. Then it stopped on Sorata's hand. Sorata looked at the bullet in his hand and was taken aback. No wonder this guy looks like he is about to die. Judging by the appearance of this bullet, it shouldn't take long for it to be corroded by blood and explode. And this guy's wound. It's amazing. Sorata looked down at the wound on Bada's heart, and squeezed her palm hard. Puff, the bullet exploded in his hand, but there was no sound at all. Then he squeezed harder with his hand, not even scum left. He glanced at Indigo and slowly narrowed his field. Indigo, come here. Oh, Indigo hurried forward, and as Indigo approached, the space around Leah also flowed, making her move instantly. Her mind was still stuck just now, so the moment she wanted to recover, she wanted to move forward. Advertisement, but this time her hand was held by Kuina. If you don't want your father to die, just stand there quietly. Hearing Kuina's serious words, Leah's forward body trembled, and she quickly stopped in place. She nervously looked at Bada, who was lying on the operating table and couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand, afraid of making a sound and disturbing the three people in front of the operating table. Lieber is also awake now. He has no idea what happened just now, his vision blurred. A hole was opened in Bada's chest lying on the operating table, and the bullet inside also disappeared. Indigo approached and looked down at the wound on Bada's chest, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. It's a miracle that this guy is alive. It turned out that when the bullet was shot at the heart, it was not stuck outside the heart as they imagined, but the first half of the bullet shot into the heart. I don't know how this guy endured this constant pain and survived these 3 years. Looking at the wound on Bada's chest, Indigo quickly looked at Lieber. Here are the thread and medicine for mending wounds. Yes, yes, yes. Lieber hurried to the table where the medicine was placed, bent down and took an iron box from under the table. They may not have many other medicines here, but there are still quite a lot of medicines for trauma. Indigo looked at Lieber, took the box he handed over, and opened it. Looking inside, it's quite complete. He took the needle and thread, sterilized it with the chemical agent hidden in the glove, and then looked at Bada. Just about to go down, the hand stopped in the air. He turned quickly to stare at Sorata. Sorata looked at Bada's chest, and slowly let go of the suppression of the space domain. I saw the space on the operating table distorted for a while, and then flowed. But Bada, who was completely still just now, suddenly had a heart beating. Then the blood rushed out like a fountain. And Indigo had quick eyesight and quick hands, and quickly pressed down. The whole process took less than a second, and the hole in Bada's heart was sewn up in a flash. This guy's actions moved Sorata for a while. This was the first time he had seen Indigo take a shot. As expected of the top few doctors in the world, this surgical suture technique is comparable to a masterpiece. Do not move. Seeing Bada's eyeballs move, Indigo quickly reprimanded loudly. The wound on the heart cannot be simply sutured. I saw a group of light green flames emerging from this guy's hand, which looked like a will-o'-the-wisp, emitting a faint cold light. Hey, Bada stopped, and Indigo pressed the green light on Bada's chest. I saw streaks of blood growing rapidly from the wound, and the exposed heart was wrapped in it in a short while. Advertisement. Then Indigo withdrew his hands and completely sewed up the wound on Bada's chest. Everyone looked at Indigo, especially this move, the flame healing method, really opened their eyes. It's really a treasure. The green flame just now should be a plant chemical, which can heal wounds quickly. Only this world full of miracles can have such miraculous medical skills. Sorata looked at Indigo, her eyes lit up and a smile appeared on her face. Indigo put away the needle and thread, closed the lid of the medical box, then clapped his hands and looked at Bada. Okay, you can get up now. Although I used chemicals to heal the wound on your heart, after all, it's a new growth and it's not tough enough, so you can't use much physical strength these days. As he spoke, he turned to look at Sorata. When he saw the appreciation in Sorata's eyes, he couldn't help puffing out his chest. After all, he is a world-class doctor, so if he doesn't show his skills, do you really think he's a soy saucer? The three of Ahua looked at Indigo with their eyes shining. This is their ship doctor. It can actually make the holes in people's mouths heal quickly. Moreover, they were all dumbfounded by the dazzling sewing skills. This is the most powerful doctor they have ever seen. Indigo held his head high and walked towards the three of Ahua. Don't think of me as a juggler now, ha 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 ha. Sorata looked at Bada and laughed out loud. We're going out first, your wound has just healed, you should rest slowly. But remember to gather at the pier tomorrow morning, don't wait when it's overdue. Hearing that Sorata was leaving, Bada hurriedly got out of bed and looked at Sorata gratefully. He felt relaxed all over his body now, although his chest still hurt a little bit, but for the previous injury, it can be said that it was the same as no injury. Although I don't know how Sorata took the bullet out of his body, it must be very difficult. He looked at Sorata, his lips twitched, trying to say something, but in the end he didn't know what to say. For a while, he froze in place. Sorata looked at Bada, chuckled lightly, and patted his shoulder. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked out with his companions. They're going back to the Liberty now. You can't let Liberty stay alone in the harbor surrounded by pirates. Bada looked at Sorata's back, his lips trembled, and finally bent down silently facing Sorata's back. Thank you for giving me a new life. He touched his chest, feeling the vitality he had never experienced in the past few years. Tears could no longer hold back, dripping down to the ground drop by drop. It's good to be alive. At this moment, he is full of hope for the future. Chapter 22. Are you in such a hurry to find death? Report. Bang. The palace gate of the Middle Kingdom was suddenly pushed open from the outside to the inside. The huge sound caused the noise in the palace to pause for a moment. Haha. You are still so frizzy when you do things. A pirate swayed, carrying a wine bottle, walked up to the little guy standing at the door, and grabbed his shoulders. Is there a problem? As he spoke, he raised the wine bottle and took a sip with a gulp. The little guy who was obviously passing the message ignored the pirate leaning on him, but took a deep breath and shouted excitedly. Silverhair, Silverhair, the Silverhair gang came out of Winter Island. Hearing the shout, everyone in the palace stopped moving, and then they all stood up with fierce eyes, grabbing their weapons. Ha 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 ha. Is that brat finally out? A pirate raised his knife and said loudly. Yeah, I thought these guys would not be willing to come out until tomorrow. As he spoke he turned and stared excitedly at Has Pigfoot. Captain, shall we go now? Ha ha ha. Boom, Has Pig's knuckles, put down the wine bottle, and took out a very huge mace from behind the sofa. Stand up slowly. How about it, Kwangjan, since Sorata and his gang are eager to seek death, let's deal with them now. Certainly. Kebi Kwangjan held the knife in his right hand, his eyes were blood red, he grinned wide, and stuck out his tongue to lick his lips. 500 million heads, it must be very exciting to chop off. He also stood up. Okay, has the black gun not returned yet? He seemed to have remembered something, and turned to look at a subordinate next to him. Report to the captain, Mr. Heichang, since he went out, he has disappeared. As he spoke, he lowered his head and thought for a while, then raised his head and said, Master Heichang, you should be waiting for the silver-haired group at the pier. Then let's go there quickly, we can't let him get the silver-haired head alone. As he said that, he kicked over the tea table in front of him and strode over. The surrounding pirates quickly moved out of the way, waiting for the two captains to pass by, and then excitedly followed. Haas at the door. Pig's feet paused suddenly, and turned to stare at the pirate who was following behind him, who just delivered the message. Have you seen the Bada Gang? Advertisement. Although the Bada Gang is weak, they are still very famous on Base Island, because this guy will do anything for food. Not long ago, he also recognized a cadre of their pirate group as the boss. He also heard the news about Bada from this cadre. Generally speaking, Bada and his gang are pistachios on Base Island. No, I think it was solved by the silver-haired gang. The pirate laughed and then said, after all, with the strength of Bada and his gang, I'm afraid they won't be able to escape even if they want to. Does Bada and his gang still have strength? Aren't these guys just funny? Ha 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 ha, the crowd behind burst into laughter. Haas Zhujiao just asked casually, he doesn't care about the death of Bada and his gang. Let's go get 500 million heads. As he spoke, he raised his mace, carried it on his shoulder with a bang, and walked out first. What? The boys rushed out with a loud roar. Liberty, Sorata, who had just fallen asleep, suddenly froze, red eyes flashing. Do these guys want to die that much? He was about to go to bed, thinking about cleaning up these guys tomorrow, but... Hey, tired. Sorata picked up the overcoat that was put aside rather uncomfortably, stood up, and put it on. Although Liberty is not big, it is enough for them, so they are basically single rooms. Of course, the single room cannot be too large, there is only room for a small bed in each room. Sorata stepped on the slippers, took down the Zon Kong, hanging on the wall, hung it on his waist, stretched out his hand and yawned. With the knife in his left hand and his head in his right hand, he walked out of the room. Outside the room was a walkway that ended in a wooden ladder leading to the upper deck. Just as Sorata walked out of the room, the door next to his room suddenly opened. Kuina came out in her dressing gown, rubbing her wet hair. On the whole ship, only Kuina's room is the largest, so it not only has a big bed, a desk, but also a separate bathroom. Sorata, are there any enemies I fight? No, Sorata looked at Kuina, the corners of her mouth turned up in a smile. You'd better go to bed early. Go rescue the people of Bath Kingdom tomorrow, there are many enemies. Advertisement, okay. A trace of regret appeared on Kuina's face, then she looked up at Sorata and said softly, you should come back soon, too. Okay. Sorata crossed Kuina and walked forward, for these shrimp soldiers and crab generals, it will take only a few minutes. As he spoke, a cold light flashed in his eyes, this time as not before. Previously, he could forgive these people with ignorance, because he didn't know if there were any good people among them. This time is different. Now that he knows who he is and dares to come, it proves that these guys are prepared to die. He will not show mercy to enemies and scum. As expected, he is a man who is born with his own topic. There are quite a few people who want to take silver-haired heads. On the roof of a house, there was a man who looked exactly like a turkey. Hearing the loud shouts coming from the direction of the kingdom, Firebird Vance's face was full of excitement. In front of his eyes was a telescope in the shape of a long tube. Through the telescope, he looked at the people rushing out of the palace, muttering in his mouth. Has Pig's knuckles, Kebi Berserk, Totoro, Kukop. The more he talked, the more excited he became. These guys seemed to be forming an alliance. As he spoke, he shook his head, with a trace of pity in his eyes. These guys are so naive. Do you really think that the world government's reward of 500 million is just a show? Naturally, the high bounty is because Silverhair Sorata's strength and threat level match this bounty. But the life and death of these guys has nothing to do with him, he only cares about Sorata's plan. Then he turned the camera to look at Liberty. What are you going to do about it, Silverhair Sorata? He has no doubts about the strength of Silverhair. Even if the Pirate Alliance is 10 times stronger, it is still not Silverhair's opponent. He was thinking about what Silverhair would do with these guys. The other party gathered almost everyone on Base Island at this time. There are at least 500 or 600 elite personnel alone. Adding some fringe soy saucers, I am afraid there will be more than 1,000 people. Should I kill, or injure, stun and let go? Hey hey. Speaking from his heart. Of course, I hope Silverhair will kill all these pirates. In this way, for him, this is another big news, and what their president likes most is big news. Chapter 23 The Bow of the Liberty. Sorata glanced up at the roof where Firebird Vance was. Then look up to the moon in the sky, it's so big. I don't know if there are really moonmen on it. The moon is dark and the wind is high, killing people without blood. You can't let these guys rush here, the friends are all sleeping. Thinking of him jumping off the boat and walking towards the town inside the pier. Down from the palace, there is a street leading directly to the canal. On the street at this time, Hoss Pigs Knuckles and Kebi Kwangjan, leading dozens of people who were either cadres or leaders of small groups, walked first, followed by a long line of people, string people. At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps at the corner at the end of the street. The sound was not loud, but it reached all of them clearly. Following the voice came a figure with silver hair, wearing a moon-white overcoat, whose face could not be seen clearly. Although they hadn't seen the real appearance of the silver-haired Sorata, they knew at first glance that this was the real master they were looking for just by the hair in front of them and the particularly conspicuous blue pupils. As Sorata approached, Has Pig's feet stopped first. And the people behind him passed Has Sujao and the others, and surrounded Sorata from both sides of the street. From a distance, it looks like a group of gangsters are bullying an ordinary person. The pirates were full of arrogance, while Sorata in the middle was calm as if she was shopping. Sorata stood still, glanced around, and finally stopped on the tall Hoss Pig's Knuckles and Kebi Modsword. Hey, there are still a lot of people. He glanced contemptuously at Kebi Berserk's knife. There is also a swordsman. Give you a chance, use all your strength, otherwise, after I do it, I won't have a chance. As he spoke, he put his hands on his chest, ignoring the countless muzzles around him. Since you are so anxious to find death, then go to death. Hoss Pig's Knuckles looked at Sorata, full of hostility. Do it. What? Hearing the sound of the pig's feet, the pirates surrounded by Sorata all pulled the trigger. In a continuous burst of gunfire, countless black bullets shot towards Sorata in the middle through the thick smoke. Why don't you guys have a long memory? Sorata stood still and didn't move. As soon as the bullets fired from all around entered 1 meter around Sorata, they automatically stopped in the air. Sorata withdrew his gaze, glanced at the bullets around him, his eyes froze, and a recoil force acted on these bullets. Advertisement then, under the terrified eyes of everyone, they shot around at a faster speed. I let you go before, but you still come. If it's not courting death, what is it? Puff, after the first sound, there was a second sound, and then dozens of pirates around fell down amidst countless pops. Guns don't work on this guy. Everyone used knives. Looking at the pirates who fell to the ground in front, the people behind did not flinch. With so many of them, could they still be intimidated by Sorata alone? One of the pirates yelled at the surroundings, drew his knife and rushed up. Come on, 500 million heads. The word 500 million completely stimulated the surrounding pirates. These guys looked at Sorata with nothing but greed in their eyes. They drew out their knives in unison, followed the pirate, and rushed towards Sorata. They usually work hard for tens of thousands of berry, let alone 500 million heads. They don't expect that they can kill Silverhair themselves, they just want to have a good performance and get paid afterwards. Sorata looked at the pirates rushing towards him, felt the madness of these guys, and frowned. To be honest, he didn't want to waste time with these guys. Just when he was about to activate Conqueror's Hockey to clear the board, a loud roar came from behind the pirates. Go away, lousy. Behind the pirates, I saw a huge black shadow, holding a mace, crushing the ground, rushing away from the pirates surrounding Sorata, and coming towards this side. Hearing the movement, the pirates who were rushing towards Sorata all slammed on the brakes and retreated quickly. Harvey Pig's feet is notoriously cruel. When he is fighting, he will not only kill his enemies, but when he is excited to kill, he will also kill his companions mercilessly. Sorata looked at Harvey Pig's Knuckles with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Baji. Could it be that you ate the Phantom Beast Pig Baji fruit? This guy is too similar to your Zoo Baji in Journey to the West, conquering the devil, which he saw in his previous life. It's just that one is white and the other is covered with black hair. Little devil, you dare to be distracted when you were about to die. Harvey Pig's feet rushed in front of Sorata, seeing that Sorata's expression hadn't changed a bit until now, instead he looked as if he was in a trance. Then you go to die. As he spoke, he raised the mace and slammed it heavily towards Sorata's head. He looked at Sorata, excited. He has seen 500 million berry beckoning to him. Advertisement, however, his excitement didn't last long. With a bang, the mace in his hand stopped in midair. How is this possible? Hoss Pig's feet, looking at the hand in front of him, his pupils shrank rapidly, and his head became clear for a moment. Hey, just kidding. That's a blow from Captain Pig's Knuckles after he transformed. I can't even make that silver-haired brat take a step back. The surrounding pirates lost their voices for a moment, then yelled loudly at the pig's feet with red eyes. "Stop playing, Captain Pig's knuckles, use your invincible strength to smash this guy's head." They didn't want to admit that there was a flash of fear in their hearts just now. "Well, tell me, what fruit ability user are you?" Sorata looked at the pig's feet with curiosity in his eyes. "Why is it so similar to a person in my memory?" "Ha ha ha ha," he laughed out loud as he spoke. Haas Pig's feet, looking at Sorata, felt the contempt in his words and eyes, and the veins popped out on his forehead. "Are you kidding me? Lousy is offering a reward of 70 million berry, a porcupine who ate porcupine fruit and has infinite power. How could it be possible to lose to you, Brad, in terms of strength?" As he spoke, he used his hands hard, his blue veins agitated, and his entire arm swelled instantly, and he wanted to lift the mace. What? But no matter how hard he tried, Sorata's hand was like a big mountain, stuck with the mace, not moving at all. Porcupine fruit? Sorata looked at the stupid pig in front of him, and suddenly lost interest, holding the mace in his left hand, and gradually holding the handle of Zon Kong's knife in his right hand. These guys are also interested in the fruit in front of him, which can make him a little interested. Now that he knows what it is, he can make a quick decision and go back to sleep early. He pulled out Zon Kong, raised his head and yawned, then his eyes turned cold. He raised Zon Kong, turned to the right, and spun 360 degrees. Moonslash. Ding, Sorata stood up straight and sheathed the knife. It was only then that I saw an arc-shaped slash slashing coldly under the moonlight, like a ribbon spreading out to the surroundings, quickly slashing towards the surroundings. The slash was silent, without giving everyone time to react, and quickly slashed past everyone surrounding Sorata on the street at this time, slashed past the house, and disappeared from sight. Kebi Berserk, holding the knife, looked at Sorata, his eyes quickly darkened. Is this the man who offered a reward of 500 million? We are so naive and cute, he actually thought of coming to take the head of such a monster. Ding, when the knife is broken, so is the person. There are thousands of people in the entire Pirate Alliance, but none of them survived. Chapter 24 The Photo Artist, Firebird Vance, one knife, only one knife. Firebird Vance, looking at the scene in the telescope, his pupils constricted and his face flushed. His heart at this moment was like thunder, beating non-stop. He felt that he was standing at the gate of hell. He forgot about the excitement of death and continued to press the switch of the camera. That moon-white figure under the moonlight will probably be imprinted in his mind for the rest of his life. This kind of killing technique is so powerful that it is like an art. For him is full of fatal attraction, elegant and beautiful. He suddenly thought of something, his face was full of excitement, he raised the camera, and kept pressing the shutter. He wants to engrave this figure that looks like an angel under the moonlight but is actually a devil in reality forever. He fears. He was afraid that Sorata would disappear in the next moment. Then he might regret it for the rest of his life. Click. Ka 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 ka, keep pressing the shutter. At this time, Sorata turned her head, the wind blew, her silver hair fluttered, and her blue pupils flowed in the nebula under the moonlight. A picture of a beautiful young man lazily standing on a mountain of corpses in a sea of blood has just been released. If there is only Sorata in the photo, people who see it must regard this photo as a wedding photo. Plus, though, the scene behind the photo, that's a decent horror photo. Well, it's a really good shot. Of course, you don't even look at who took the picture. I, Firebird Vance, am one of the best photo artists in our paper. Firebird Vance, lying on the ground, pouted his buttocks and looked into the telescope. He suddenly found that Sorata in the camera had disappeared, and he just now. Sorata silently appeared beside Firebird Vance, squatting down, looking at the photos in the camera. I have to say that this guy is really reckless not to be a professional photographer. Whether it is the angle or the lighting, the photos he took are handled just right. It made him feel like he was amazed by the scene in the photo. Okay. Sorata rubbed her chin, thought for a while, with my appearance, it's a pity not to be a star. Ha 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 ha, advertisement. Firebird Vance turned his head stiffly and looked at Sorata who was squatting beside him. Since it was night, only Sorata's blue pupils could be seen, and his face was dark. Sorata didn't exude any aura, but the terrifying aura of killing thousands of people with a single blow on his body made Firebird turn pale involuntarily. The excitement just now, like eating ice cream in the winter, made him shiver shiveringly from the inside out. What the hell? How could you get carried away? He didn't know if it was his crazy shooting that attracted Sorata just now, or something else. Anyway, now Sorata, the god of death, is here. He was scared to death. How? Sorata withdrew her gaze from the camera and turned to look at Firebird. Why do you sweat so much? Are you sick? Would you like me to introduce you to a doctor? Let me tell you, the doctor I know has world-class medical skills. Don't worry, I will cure you. Hey, why don't you talk? Saying that, Sorata's face darkened, looking gloomy under the moonlight. You guys are not afraid of me. Firebird Vance's lips trembled, and the ground beneath him was wet with cold sweat. I want to speak, but I don't know how to speak, so I can only complain in my heart. You know I'm afraid of you, why don't you hurry up and leave? Didn't see my soul, are you going to ascend to heaven? Sorata raised the corner of her mouth, patted Firebird's shoulder, and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. What are you afraid of? I'm not a murderer. Yes, you are not a murderous maniac, and the thousands of corpses below are still cold. you ask them to stand up and confront you to see if they recognize it. Firebird Vance couldn't help rolling his eyes after hearing Sorata's words, and then took a deep breath. IQ suppressed fear and stood on the high ground again. Since Sorata didn't kill him immediately, it is basically concluded that he should be fine. So he cannot be so afraid of Sorata, and judging from this guy's words, it seems that he still appreciates himself. He twisted his stiff neck, sat up slowly, didn't dare to pay attention to the sticky sweat on his body, but looked at Sorata and spoke cautiously. Hello silver-haired brother, I'm a reporter from World Economic News, and I'm here to shoot you Grand Line Star like pirates and report your news to people all over the world. Oh, am I famous? Sorata stared at Firebird with a curious expression. Of course. As a person who offered a reward of 70 million berry for the first time, and even reached an astonishing 500 million berry in just a few days, it's hard for you not to attract attention. You don't know, news corporations all over the world are staring at you, waiting for you to enter the Grand Line. Advertisement, oh. Sorata gave a soft sound, and instead of paying attention, stared at the Firebird curiously. Then why are you the only reporter on Base Island? Of course it's because Bath is not a hot island right now. None of the supernovae in the past 10 years have passed through Bass Island, so this place has gradually become an insulating place for reporters. If I didn't want to try my luck, I wouldn't come here. After all, the world government has strictly prohibited reporters from inquiring about news here. Like this? Sorata nodded. The Kingdom of Bath is a celestial dragon's farce. It can be said to be a scandal. Of course, the world government does not want reporters to come here. Firebird stared at Sorata, as if thinking of something, quickly took out a booklet from the ring, opened it, and took out a picture of Sorata just going to sea and meeting the Creek pirates for the first time from the interlayer inside. Photo. Silver-haired brother, look, your first battle was filmed by our colleagues from the World Economic News Agency. The colleagues in his mouth are actually those newsbirds. These newsbirds have been flying in the sea all year round, and they also do some secret photography work from time to time. Otherwise, if you want to find a boat in the vast sea, it is not as easy as finding a needle in a haystack. He said with a proud look on his face, although the pictures are not very clear, we are definitely the first newspaper to pay attention to you. He wants to show Sorata the strength of their newspaper office, so as to win Sorata's favor, so that their newspaper office can follow Sorata in the future without fear of being killed. This is also the tacit understanding between their newspaper and Supernova. The more exposure a Supernova gets, the more fame it gets. And their newspaper office can also follow suit, not only can earn more money from it, but of course they can also gain a lot of fame. Oh, Sorata looked at the photo and nodded. If you want to say who the world's largest intelligence organization is, I believe everyone will say in unison, the World Government Spy Department. But if you want to say who in this world can know the situation in the sea and the news of the pirates in the sea the fastest, then it must be the World News Economic News Agency. Because of this newspaper, there are newsbird organizations all over the world. Even Marine, world government, sometimes has to go to this newspaper to buy news about the pirates. And the annual Supernova candidate is also made by this newspaper. Even the topic of the future King Luffy, who became famous completely and was called the fifth emperor of the sea, was also something that was brought up by the World Economic News Agency. It can be said that if you want to be famous in the sea, first, you need to do something big, and second, you need to establish a good relationship with the World Economic News Agency. Then even if you don't do any big things, they can make you famous. So Sorata is not disgusted with Firebird Vance's overtures. Because to solve the problems of the Bath Kingdom, it really can only rely on these journalists. He remembered that the president of this guy, Morgans, had decided to relocate the headquarters after refusing to accept black money from the world government a few years later. Thinking about it, this guy will definitely not refuse the friendship of a person who can keep making big news. Chapter 25. This is a hot-blooded anime, not a romantic romance. Okay, let's introduce yourself first. Sorata stared at Firebird with interest in her eyes. After chatting for so long, I still don't know your name. When I first saw this guy, I thought this guy was a fan of Doflamingo. Sao Bao's fiery red coat is exactly the same style as Brother Ming's, and he has a pink comb hairstyle. At first glance, he thought this guy was spying on a turkey. Firebird Vance's face flushed suddenly, because he heard the hint of friendship from Sorata's words. As the first reporter to have friendship with Sorata, he can be sure that his status in the newspaper office will be greatly improved as more deeds of Sorata are reported in the future. In the end, he might be able to become like the senior he admired, the king of photography nicknamed Flame Photographer. Of course, all of this is based on the premise of making good friends with Sorata. He stared at Sorata, cleared his throat, and said excitedly, I, Firebird Vance, 28 years old, a reporter by profession, unmarried, blood type A. Sorata looked at the chattering Firebird, and didn't interrupt until the guy finished talking about the place of birth, place of residence, how many members of his family, and who they were. Then he said, it's not that simple to get my friendship, it depends on whether your newspaper can afford the price. Firebird suddenly became speechless, he thought Sorata wanted money. Although he had never seen a pirate asking for money, he had heard of it. But he is just a small reporter, and he doesn't have much money. So he looked at Sorata and said carefully, that. Don't stammer, talk about something. Sorata stood up, stared at the distant sea, stretched out her hand and yawned. Well, big silver-haired brother, how much do you want? Firebird stood up, staring nervously at Sorata. Money? Sorata turned her head and looked at the Firebird in surprise. Seeing its nervous expression, she couldn't help curling her lips. When did I say I want money, for free? Firebird heaved a sigh of relief, then seemed to think of something, and picked it up just as he was relieved. No money. Then what do you want? He glanced at Sorata cautiously, seeing the evil expression on the corner of Sorata's mouth, his body couldn't help shivering. Following the footsteps, he couldn't help but took a small step back, folded his hands on his chest, and looked at Sorata with a vigilant look. This guy must have taken a fancy to his beauty. Advertisement. Although he knew he was handsome, he didn't want to fencing with others. Sorata looked at the Firebird, as if sensing something, the corner of her mouth twitched, and the veins on her forehead popped out. He stretched out his hand, took a step forward, and punched Firebird in the head. Boom. What are you guys thinking? Lousy is the most beautiful man in the world, is he like that? Vomit. Sorata looked at this guy. The more he thought about it, the more angry he became, and he couldn't help but have the urge to kill and silence him. Hiss. It hurts. It hurts. Firebird clutched his head. The coxcomb on his head was flattened by Sorata's punch. He raised his head and looked at Sorata carefully, and when he saw the fierce light in Sorata's eyes, he opened his mouth quickly. Brother Silverhair, don't be angry, I was just joking, nothing else. As he spoke, he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that Sorata doesn't look like a fake, it must not be someone peeping at his beauty. Thinking of this, for some reason, a trace of loss emerged in his heart. Hey, I have nowhere to put my beauty, how come no one appreciates it? Stop squatting. Sorata looked at Firebird, and said angrily, call your president quickly, I will talk to your president, and if we can talk, you can get my friendship. If we can't talk. Saying that, Sorata's face darkened, you know. It's okay, it's definitely okay. Firebird looked at Sorata, his face turned pale. Our president, specifically told us reporters that we must take pictures of you. As long as you take pictures of you, not only will you get a bonus, but you can also be promoted. That's not too soon. Sorata looked at the Firebird, and her patience was a bit worn out. Whoever is treated as that kind of person will be unhappy. What's more, it was such an ugly ghost who regarded him as that kind of person. Ba 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 ba. What are you thinking? Even a handsome man won't do. This is a hot-blooded animation, not a romantic romance. Firebird looked at Sorata impatiently, and quickly took out a red phone bug from his arms. Seeing him open the cover, the fiery red phone bug's shrugging head suddenly woke up. Advertisement. He then stretched out his hand and squeezed the rocker next to the back shell of the phone bug and shook it a few times, and the phone bug dialed with a burst of beeps. Is this the phone bug? It's amazing. Such things as phone bugs are rare in the world, and they don't have any in the Yixin Taoist temple. So since childhood, this is the first time Sorata has seen him so close. After talking with this guy Morgans, I must ask this guy to give him a few. At that time, a phone bug that plays videos can be installed on the ship, which can be used as a movie theater. That way it won't be so boring. At the same time, the headquarters of the World Economic News Agency, even in the dark, is brightly lit, and countless people and newsbirds come in and out. In the president's office, Morgans just finished writing a news article, and now he is lying on a chair, drinking coffee, and resting. At this time, blue, the phone bug in front of him suddenly rang. Morgans put down the coffee cup slowly, took the napkin gracefully, wiped his lips, and then reached for the microphone on the phone bug. Moses. This is the World Economic News Agency, the president, Morgans. Hi, President. I'm Firebird Vance. Oh, hearing that it was the Firebird, Morgans quickly sat up straight. Is there news about Silverhair again? Master President. Base Island. Firebird glanced at Sorata cautiously, and said to the phone bug, Silverhair Sorata, is by my side. What did you say? Morgans was taken aback. I said the silver-haired brother is by my side. Seeing that the call was connected, Sorata hurriedly stepped forward, reached out and took the phone bug from Firebird's hand, held it up to her eyes, stared into the phone bug's eyes, and said, I think the opposite is the well-known president of Morgans, one of the emperors of the underground world. Morgans looked at the head of the phone bug in front of him, and suddenly changed his appearance, especially a pair of blue eyes. The whole person suddenly became excited. Silver-hair Sorata. Yes, that's me. So it looks like you were looking for me, not Firebird. Morgans looked at the phone bug with interest in his eyes. Hey, what can I do for you? Chapter 26. As he spoke, he leaned back on the chair with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Since Sorata took the initiative to find him, it must be something that he wants to help, otherwise these pirates would not easily call him. Sorata looked at the phone bug in her hand, her eyes fixed. He thought too well. Judging from this guy's tone, this guy seemed to know that he had something to ask him. As expected of a journalist, he knew a lot from the fact that he made the phone call first. He shouldn't have called in a hurry. Since the other party also wanted to follow him, even if he waited until this guy came to him, maybe he would get more benefits. Thinking of this, he couldn't help shaking his head. Just hit it, he can wait, but base can't wait. Even if the other party wants to follow him, they may not necessarily report on base. Because compared to the Grand Line with constant big news, what happened in the Kingdom of Bath 3 years ago was actually nothing. The Kingdom of Bath is only a small country with a population of tens of thousands, and it is not worthy of the rivalry between Morgans and the world government. If it is changed to Alabasta, such a big country, the situation will be different. Not to mention the world government, even if it is a god, it is impossible to keep these newspapers silent. Thinking of this, he didn't want to waste too much time, so he went straight to the point. I want to make a deal with President Moore, trade? Right. Morgans picked up his coffee, took a slow sip, and looked at the phone bug. Tell me, what happened in the Kingdom of Bath 3 years ago, especially Celestial Dragons, your newspaper, I want your newspaper, to publish all this matter. Quack quack quack. The matter of Celestial Dragons is no small matter. Morgans, holding his coffee, chuckled at the phone bug. And 3 years ago, about the Kingdom of Bath. The corners of Sorata's mouth turned up, and a look of contempt flashed in his eyes. Don't say you don't know, of course I know, but, why should I report it? That's what we're trading today, as long as you report on base, I can allow you to shoot me up close in the future. Sorata stared into the phone bug's eyes, and suddenly burst out with a domineering aura, and this aura seemed to go along the phone bug and shoot into Morgans' eyes. Advertisement, he said softly, and I can guarantee that I will be the strongest in the world in the future. Morgans was stared at by the phone bug, and then a look of extreme excitement appeared on his face. His hands trembled, he threw away the coffee in his hand, stood up, laughed loudly, and made a quick decision. Quack quack quack. Okay, I promise you. With Sorata's potential, he believes that even if he can't be the strongest, he will definitely be famous in the new world. Such a character is worthy of his cooperation. Exclusive news about big shots is not so easy to get. If their newspaper could promote Silver Hair as a character like 4 Emperors, then to him, it would be more pleasing than the news about the little pirate. Thinking of this, he couldn't help laughing out loud. But thinking that the other side was still listening, he quickly covered his mouth. Hey, now is not the time to get carried away. Huh, Sorata breathed a sigh of relief calmly. It's better to be careful when dealing with these old foxes, although it seemed that he had taken the initiative. Not really, because he really needs the other person. Only when the troubles in Bath are known to the whole world, will Bath Island be truly safe in the future. Otherwise, even if the Kingdom of Bath is saved, as long as he leaves, this place will still become a paradise of war. Because this is not New World, but Marine, World Government, and the first half of the Grand Line, which is relatively well controlled. There is not only the Marine headquarters here, but also a large number of Marine branches, and there are even agents of the World Government on every island. They want a small country to perish, not too many ways. Hey, take it. Sorata returned the phone bug to Firebird, yawned and disappeared. I'm going back to sleep first. I hope that the news of Bath will spread across the sea along with my news in the next few days. Okay, big silver-haired brother, good night. Firebird took the phone bug, looked at the empty roof, and was slightly dazed. Then he said to the phone bug, President, what should I do next? From now on, you will only follow the Silver Hair. I will send you a follow-up team, and you will be the team leader from now on. The phone bug paused, and then said, follow the shoot, but you have to be careful, the mood of the big man is very unpredictable, don't let the other party feel dissatisfied so easily. Big news, battles, you can shoot, but don't shoot daily things, the other party is not a star, but a world powerhouse, can endure filming, but can't endure daily surveillance. Advertisement. Firebird stared at the phone bug, his face was flushed, and he said excitedly, okay, President, I will definitely follow the silver-haired brother well. Well, do it well. Oh, by the way, President, I just caught a big news about the silver-haired brother. Oh, Morgans looked shocked. Is there any silver-hair news so soon? As expected of the man who wants to be the strongest in the world. What news? Just now, the silver-haired brother clashed with the Pirate Alliance on Base Island. Conflict. Right. Firebird was full of excitement, and quickly said, the silver-haired brother only used one knife, and the extremely elegant slash, just like a Shinigami, easily slaughtered thousands of people in the Pirate Alliance. Morgans was taken aback, and then extreme excitement appeared on his face. The Pirate Alliance with thousands of people slaughtered with one blow. Coupled with the appearance of silver hair, such a beautiful picture will definitely shock the whole Grand Line. Thinking of this, he hastily said to the phone bug, what are you waiting for? Please send it to me to have a look, and write a detailed report of the battle, and send it together. Okay, President. After finishing speaking, the phone bug in Firebird's hands suddenly froze. That night, Sorata reached a deal with the World Economic News Agency, and it seemed that the World Economic News Agency took advantage. In fact, it is mutual cooperation, each takes what it needs. Because of Sorata's personality and the personality of their team, similar things will definitely be encountered in future journeys, and of course there are people. After these incidents, it must be necessary to let the World Economic News publish news exposure. Otherwise, with the urine nature of the world government, many truths will be forced to be buried in the dark, and they will never see the light. He doesn't want the people he saved, or the country, to be caught in the flames of war again. Just like Brother Ming, if Fujitora and Marine didn't kneel down, maybe this guy would be released by the world government just after he was arrested. Only by exposing the evil to the eyes of the whole world can those people or forces who shield the evil dare not take action easily. Because once they make a move, their ugly faces will be known by countless people. Such a thing, even the world government will not be able to bear it. If the world government really does this, I think everyone in the Revolutionary Army will surely wake up laughing from their dreams. Chapter 27. What is Marine's job? the Grand Line is directly under the responsibility of Naval Headquarters, but because the Grand Line is too large, Marine has set up branches at each stage of the Grand Line. These branches are directly under the headquarters, all start with G, and the head of the branch base is Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral. These branches are not comparable to the branches of the 4 Seas. Basically, every branch is a military fortress. If the branch of the 4 Seas can still be occupied by pirates, then the branch of the Grand Line is simply impossible. On the Grand Line, the Marine branch not only has the Vice Admiral, the high-end Marine headquarters, but also comes standard with dozens of warships. There are countless cannons. As long as it's not heaven-defying, attacking from the air, ordinary pirates don't even think about rushing into the Marine branch base in their dreams. At this time, in the G10 branch near Bass Island, as a burst of alarm bells sounded, the entire base was suddenly brightly lit, and countless searchlights kept shooting up and down. And those Marine soldiers who just fell asleep got up quickly, without even yawning. After a few strokes, he put on his military uniform and rushed out of the dormitory. Following the shout of the officer at the door, he equipped weapons in the weapon room next to him and rushed to the pier. In the base chief's office, Smokey, an old man with white hair and beard, resting his left hand on the table, holding a cigar in his right hand, letting the cigar burn without smoking. This old man is the base chief of the G10 branch, Marison, who has defeated and captured countless pirates. He is a figure of the same period as Garp, Sengoku and others. Mellison frowned, his eyes were low, and he stared at the phone bug on the desktop in a daze. The noise in the base at this moment is the emergency mobilization. They just received the order from the world government. After thinking for a while, he still took the phone bug. 3 years ago, is there finally a conclusion? He flicked the joystick of the phone bug for a moment, and then shook it quickly. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. It was midnight in the Marshal's office, and the lights were on. The entire office was silent. Sengoku, wearing the uniform of a marshal, frowned and leaned back in a chair. On the desk in front of him, there was also a phone bug. Obviously he was waiting for something. Just then, the phone bug rang. Blue brew, brew brew. Sengoku froze for a moment, then fixed his eyes, quickly sat up straight, and picked up the receiver on the phone bug. Naval Headquarters, Sengoku. Sengoku-san. A rather tired voice came from the phone bug, not physically tired, but mentally exhausted. Sengoku's pupils shrank when he heard the sound. Mellison, you haven't called me that for many years. Yes. In the G10 branch, Mellison looked at the phone bug with reminiscence in his eyes. I still remember the days when we were in the academy together. Decades have passed in a flash. Advertisement, I've changed, you've changed, Crane has changed. Then he seemed to think of something, and suddenly smiled. That B*** D Garp is still the same. Garp? Only that old boy can always look like that, haha. Then Sengoku's face turned serious, and he said, in the middle of the night, you didn't come here specifically to talk about these memories, did you? We will all retire in a few years, and we have plenty of time to talk slowly. Talk slowly? Mellison raised his right hand, took a deep breath of the cigarette, and slowly opened his mouth, letting the shreds of tobacco float out from the corner of his mouth. Remember, my justice is upholding? How could it be forgotten? Your justice is to protect civilians. Yes, to protect the civilians. Mellison sighed, but me, 3 years ago, I attacked a country that has no crime at all. Just because, he squeezed the microphone's hand so tightly that it almost exploded. Just because of a celestial dragon's farce, Marison. Mellison looked up suddenly, staring into the phone bug's eyes. Hear me out. Okay, you say. Because of a celestial dragon's farce, I have been dishonored to the concept of justice that I have adhered to for decades. He took a deep puff on the cigar, holding the smoke in his lungs, as if it would make him feel better. Although the name I received at the time was to take Marine to assist the CP0 organization. And I didn't do it at all, but if it weren't for me, if it weren't for the warship I was sitting on, the Kingdom of Bath would never have been breached so easily. And, today, 3 years later, the same name is actually asked to stop me, the King of the Kingdom of Bath, which was destroyed 3 years ago. As he said that, his face completely sank. Could it be that a farce? 3 years. 3 years is not enough. Sengoku. Okay. Could it be that the purpose of our Marine is to wipe the *** of the world's nobles? Motoku. Sengoku watched the phone bug silently. This problem, he knows, Mellison knows, the whole Marine knows. But no one will answer. Advertisement. He took a deep breath and said in a serious tone, Marison, I ask you as the Marshal of Naval Headquarters, what are we? Marine. Yes, we are Marine, a Marine directly under the world government. If we want to strengthen the justice in our hearts, we must first obey the bounden duty of soldiers. Obey the naming. If we can't do this, we are ashamed of the military uniform we are wearing. And what is Marine's vocation? Fighting pirates. We don't need to take care of other things, and we shouldn't take care of them. We just do our own job well. Sengoku pulled into the phone bug, lowered his head, his eyes flashed, but we are friends again, and for the justice that friends insist on, I can only say. Whether it's the world government, celestial dragons, or naval headquarters, you don't need to bother. As long as you are still on the side of justice, I will support you in any decision you make. That's all for you to think about. After finishing speaking, Sengoku hung up the phone, leaned back on the chair, his whole body softened, and his appearance, during this leaning effort, seemed to have aged instantly. Fool. Sengoku lowered his head, frowning, his face darkened. There are some things that he, the marshal, can't do anything about. Who told him to have a boss too? In the past few years he has been a marshal. There are many things similar to the Kingdom of Bath. When he was admiral before, the previous marshal directly asked about these matters, and they just carried out the naming, and sometimes they didn't know the reason, even afterward. But when he became the marshal, it was his turn to handle such matters, and some orders were issued by him himself. Did he want to issue such an order? I don't want to. However, he has no reason and no strength to resist the orders directly issued by the world government. Because the entire marine system is attached to the world government system, if it weren't for the money from the world government, what would Marine use to uphold justice? All he can do is to do his own job well, and to strengthen his own concept of justice, and fight more pirates. As for matters between the country and the world government, he, Marine, can't do anything. In the G10 branch, in the base chief's office, Mellison hung up the phone, stared with firm eyes, took the justice cloak aside, and stood up. What is justice? What is his justice? The justice that was shamed 3 years ago, he will pick it up himself this time. Although the him 3 years ago just sailed the warship over, he did nothing. But this kind of coercion by force is actually the real culprit for the destruction of the Kingdom of Bath. It's hard for him to lie to himself. As for the environment that the Kingdom of Bath has been in these past few years, he is also guilty. This is why he is the same age as Garp Sengoku, but has gray hair. And when the figure reappeared in his mind, he knew that everything in the Kingdom of Bath should be completely over this time. Chapter 28. He's not a Sailor Moon. In the early morning, the sky is very bright. Before the sun jumped out of the sea, Bada took his younger brothers and appeared on the embankment of Chundao. Looking at the countless stumps and broken arms on the street in the distance, shock flashed in his eyes. Because judging from the wounds, these people all died under a knife. So even the movement of falling to the ground can be called neat. Wow. This is too miserable. What a tragedy. These guys have plagued Base Island for 2 or 3 years. A younger brother looked at the corpse with joy in his eyes. It's over now, we should be happy. Yeah, these guys should have died a long time ago. I don't know who I mess with, it's a pleasure to be killed all of them. The noise of the younger brothers caught Bada's attention. He turned his head. Okay, don't make noise here. Now only the silver-haired brother has this strength on the island. I'll go see if the silver-haired brother is awake. You put these clean up the body. As he spoke, he looked towards Winter Island. Since the pirates are all dead and you've cleaned them up, go and call them all out. I haven't felt the warmth of Chundao for so many years. I think they are very nostalgic. To understanding. The little brothers responded in unison, and happily rushed to the street, looking at the corpses all over the ground. They were not afraid at all, but very excited. Many of these corpses were pirates and bounty hunters who bullied them. Now that they are all dead, it's no wonder they are unhappy. No liberty. On the middle deck, the three of Ahua and Kuina are training separately. Ordinary people can only become stronger through countless accumulations, not to mention that they still have Ahua's radish now, which makes them no longer have the idea of salting fish before. On the bow deck, Sorata was lying on a deck chair, drinking morning tea and reading a newspaper. Beside him, Firebird Ace stood quietly with his hands up. Brother Silverhair, how are you doing? Not bad. Sorata put down her teacup and nodded. The newspaper in his hand is the World Economic News Agency, which rushed out the news overnight. I saw the front of the first photo above, which was the photo of him beheading thousands of people last night. The above even gave him a new nickname, Elegant Moonlight Swordsman. It seems so, but thinking about it, why is it so strange? For love and justice, Sailor Moon, Shui Bingyue, I will represent the moon and destroy you. Sorata quickly shook her head. He's not a Sailor Moon. Advertisement. Then he turned over the newspaper in his hand. I saw the content behind the newspaper, which was the content of the transaction between him and Morgans. It clearly stated that the farce of the Kingdom of Bath 3 years ago was accompanied by a photo of the Celestial Dragons in the Royal Palace of Bath where the war spread. I think these news should have been written 3 years ago, but they just haven't been published. However, it is not too late now. It was published 3 years ago, maybe it can only spread in a small area. By now, the world should have forgotten it. And with his news, it's different. His news will not only be sold in a small area, but will basically be distributed all over the world, and as his popularity rises, the world just wants to forget about Bath, and it will be many years later. Sorata finished reading the newspaper, put it aside, turned her head to look at the embankment, just in time to see Bada and his gang. Seeing Bada walking towards this side, Sorata picked up the teacup and took a sip. These guys are quite early. He thought they had been excited all night, and they wouldn't come out until the sun fully rose. Firebird Vance, following Sorata's gaze, looked towards the embankment, and happened to meet Bada's majestic gaze. This made his pupils shrink. Strong, another strong. He fixed his eyes, and when he saw Bada's clothes and appearance clearly, he couldn't help shouting. Bass Bada. This name, 3 years ago, was the strongest on Base Island and the surrounding waters. Of course exclude Marine. This name, 3 years ago, led Bass Island. No pirate group dared to mess around. This name, along with Bath Wine, appeared more than once in the headlines of various newspapers 3 years ago. He lowered his head and thought for a while, why did he forget this guy before? If it weren't for celestial dragons, if it weren't for CP0, this guy's reputation would be even worse by now. He didn't understand. Why did he forget? Buzz Bada. But one thing, he understands. That is, this guy is back, and it looks like he is still with silver hair, so big news is coming. Thinking of this, he trembled all over, and his face quickly turned red, as if he was drunk. Happiness came too suddenly. Hey, what laughing? Sorata turned to look at Firebird with a puzzled expression. Nothing. Huonio hurriedly shut up, his shoulders trembled, and he couldn't help being excited. Looking at that excited look, he was like a wretched man who saw a beautiful woman, unspeakably wretched. Laugh loudly if you want to laugh, so wretched, get the hell out of here. Yes, I'm going to the side, advertisement. Sorata looked at the Firebird who retreated to the side and squatted beside the boat, and was speechless for a while. Nerve. Bada jumped onto the boat and couldn't help but glance at Huobi. The main reason is that this guy's pink coxcomb head is too eye-catching. Bada just glanced at it, then lost interest, and walked quickly to Sorata. Brother silver-haired, it's not too late for the younger brother. Not late. Sorata looked at Bada, and didn't correct his address anymore, this guy was completely dependent on him. As he spoke, he drank the morning tea in one gulp, put down the teacup, took the newspaper aside, and handed it to Bada. Well, let's take a look. This is the capital of whether your Bath Kingdom will be safe in the future. After hearing this, Bada quickly took the newspaper. When I saw the news about Sorata, I was taken aback. Behind, idiot. Oh, he quickly turned over the newspaper and took a closer look. When he saw what was written on it, he suddenly trembled with excitement. Today, 3 years later, he saw the Kingdom of Bath again, which made him unhappy. After excitement comes thinking. He bowed his head in thought for a while, then his eyes lit up, and he looked up at Sorata, eyes full of gratitude. Although I don't know how Sorata asked the World Economic News Agency to report on what happened in the Kingdom of Bath 3 years ago, it must not be easy to think about it. You must know that since the Kingdom of Bath was destroyed, the news organizations in the world have collectively been silent. He has never seen a news about Bath in the past few years. Sorata looked at Bada, the corners of his mouth turned up, and a smile appeared on his face. Now that you know what I mean, take this Firebird reporter to take more photos. Sorata thought about it, and although she couldn't bear it, she still had to do it. Go and take more pictures, the ruins on the island, and the children and old people in the cellar. The more miserable you are, the safer you will be in the future. Okay, I know. Bada nodded firmly, he knew Sorata's intentions. No matter how he is the king of a country, he still knows the public opinion. No one knows the news about Bath, but it's okay to say that if everyone knows about the trouble, then the world government will be restrained. At least not blatantly. And secretly, with his strength and Sorata's protection, he believed that he would be able to protect Bath well. As for Sorata's strength, he glanced at the younger brothers who were carrying the corpse in the distance. This strength is really reassuring. Advertisement chapter 29. Really brave. 2 hours later. The streets on the wharf have been cleaned up, and there are only bloodlines that cannot be cleaned, telling about the tragedy that happened here last night. On the banks of the Spring Island River, the Liberty, with its sails down, was blown up by the wind. At the back of the Liberty, a small sailboat similar to the Liberty also put down its sails, and it was full of Bada's younger brothers. Looking at the embankment again, hundreds of old people and children are standing quietly on the bank. They looked at the small sailboat in front of them, and the people on the small sailboat, as if they were looking at soldiers who were about to go far away, full of anticipation. On the bow of the Liberty, Sorata patted Bada on the shoulder. Relax, with me here. No one can stop us from going back, your citizen. Well, I trust the boss. I've said it all. Sorata patted the hand on Bada's shoulder for a moment, then raised it and clapped it vigorously. Don't call me the boss. You said that you were almost 40, how did you call me, the boss, who just turned 17? Bada turned his head to look at Sorata. Serious, boss is just an honorific title. I have nothing to be ashamed of, but brother, you are the one who is surprised. Sorata withdrew her hand and pointed at herself. A big question mark appeared above her head. That's right, it's you, boss. Although you are young, you are strong. Isn't it normal for people to call you big brother? Why are you so resistant and impatient? Sorata puts her hand to her forehead. Is this why he doesn't let people call him boss? It was Bada who always looked majestic and serious after returning to his original appearance, which made him a little bit embarrassed. And this guy's age can indeed be regarded as his uncle level. Let such an uncle level, call him the boss, always feel awkward. That's why he kept emphasizing, don't call him the boss. I don't care, don't call him boss anyway, what's that called? Just call the name. Oh, boss Sorata, Sorata looked at Bada and frowned slightly. Bada looked at Sorata with hesitation in his eyes, he could indeed feel Sorata's kindness. To say that he was a little bit reluctant to call Sorata the boss at the beginning, but later Sorata agreed to help him and took out the bullet in his heart. This made him cry willingly. Advertisement let him change his words now, to be honest, he is really unwilling. But seeing Sorata persist in this way, he can only change his words. Empty, Sorata. After calling out the name, he breathed a sigh of relief. Ha 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 ha. That's right, Sorata laughed loudly, turned to look at the ready partners, and roared. Brothers, let's go. It is good. A dhow in the pilot house pulled the rudder hard, and the Liberty immediately started to move. On the river embankment, under the gaze of thousands of eyes, it slowly drove out of the river and rushed into the boundless sea. After a flash, Huo Nio put down the camera in his hand, and engraved the hundreds of expectant figures on the embankment in the photo forever. Waiting to be released to the world together with the dozens of previously captured photos in the camera. Sorata stood at the bow of the boat, stared blankly at the gradually rising sun in the distance, then turned her head to look at Bada. There should be a marine branch near here, okay. After hearing this, Bada looked back at the permanent pointer on his wrist, raised his head, and looked to the left. Bass Island, Marineg 10 branch, and the uninhabited island we are going to go to form a triangle. Then what is the strength of this G10 branch? After hearing this, Sorata's eyes lit up. G10 branch? Bada revealed his recollection. The base chief of these branches is called Melison, an old vice admiral of the same period as Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Garp. Be strong. Oh, contemporary with Garp? Sorata stretched out his right hand, touched his chin, and then said, I think this is the guy who assisted CP0 3 years ago. You don't know his specific strength, so does this mean that this guy didn't make a move 3 years ago? I didn't know until I came back. Bada thought for a while, but after I came back, I really didn't see him make a move. Okay. Sorata nodded. The old people in the marine basically have their own concept of justice, and this Melison might be a real just marine. The naming of the world government, you can know a lot of information without doing it. Advertisement, what? Sorata raised her lowered head suddenly, and the nebula in her eyes flashed a red light. What's wrong? Bada looked into the distance with doubts in his eyes. It's okay. Does Base Island often come to the pirates? This is the first island of the Grand Line. Basically, pirate ships come here every day, and sometimes more than one pirate ship comes here in a day. Speaking of this, he paused for a moment, and then said, just yesterday, you were not the only one ship, and Base Island welcomed a pirate ship yesterday afternoon. Meet? Sorata nodded, thinking about the way you greet each other, it must make the other party very satisfied? Ha ha. Bada smiled awkwardly, because yesterday at sunset, he welcomed Sorata and the others in the same way. At this moment, on the sea level in the distance, a mast with a blood-red pirate flag floating gradually appeared. After a while, a dilapidated, three-masted large sailing ship surfaced with its back facing the rising sun. Looking at the pirate ship in the distance, Bada was puzzled for a while. How many years had he not seen a pirate ship sailing in the morning? These guys are warriors. How dare you cross the starting section of the Grand Line in the dark? You must know that there is no island at the beginning of the Grand Line, which also caused the weather at the beginning of this voyage to be particularly violent. Every year, a large number of ships are buried during this voyage. If there is water that dares to salvage under the initial section of the sea, it will be difficult to make a fortune even if you think about it. Underneath, there are countless cute new pirates buried. Of course, merchant ships are also indispensable. Boss, there are 2 small sailboats ahead. On the dilapidated sailboat, the lookout put down his binoculars and yelled at the people lying on the deck resting below. Boat, there is a boat. When the pirates heard the shout, they stood up quickly and rushed to the bow. For them this night, it was like being in a magical sea. There were originally hundreds of companions on their boat, but now less than half were left. And the ship below them, North Blue's Overlord-class battleship, was almost completely buried with them last night. Even now, it has reached the point where it will disintegrate at any time. Chapter 30 The True Cruelty of the Grand Line. Step aside. At this moment, a tyrannical voice suddenly came from behind the pirates. After hearing the sound, the pirates quickly moved out of the way. I saw a huge, strong figure walking over. Come here, more than 4 meters tall, standing among the pirates, a proper titan. Boom, boom, boom. Titan's footsteps on the deck made the dilapidated sailboat under him tremble uncontrollably, as if it was about to disintegrate in an instant. He stood at the bow of the boat, watching the 2 small boats gradually approaching in the distance, with a bloodthirsty light flashing across his face. There are ships, and one of them looks like a merchant ship, so there must be islands ahead. Although his arrogance made their pirate group sail in the dark, the members were halved and the ship was severely damaged. But it doesn't matter. They are pirates, vicious pirates. There is no ship to grab, no one to recruit. As long as they have money, they have everything. They snatched the large sailboat under him. As for his subordinates, as long as he is there, his pirate group will be there. Boss, there seems to be a pirate ship on the other side, shall we go there? Snapped. Titan turned his hand and slapped this subordinate. Who do you think lousy is? Give me the boat over there. Yes. The pirates adjusted their course excitedly and rushed straight towards the Liberty. Now is not the time to be slow. As long as you rob the other party, the broken ship under your feet will be gone. What? Looking at the bow of the Liberty, Sorata was slightly surprised when he saw the pirate ship that suddenly turned its bow and came straight towards them. Just looking at the route, the opposite party should not be on the same route as them. Looking back now, wouldn't it be to rob them? Interesting. He planned to ignore the other party, thinking about rushing to the uninhabited island where base nationals were held as soon as possible. Who knew that the other party was so anxious to seek death? Since you want to die, let's fulfill the other party. Thinking of him jumping lightly, jumping onto the bow, holding the knife in his left hand and the handle of the knife in his right hand. Seeing Sorata's actions, Firebird hastily raised the camera with excitement on his face. He had seen this action last night. Advertisement. That scene made him tremble all over thinking about it now. Are you going to attack again, silver-haired Sorata? At this moment, a stream of black hockey wrapped around Zonkong along Sorata's arm. Sorata drew the knife instantly. Clang, one sword style EI slash wave. If you want to talk about long-distance slashing, you have to learn the slashing from Golden Lion. I saw a huge silver-gray crescent-shaped slash, quickly slashing towards the dilapidated giant sailboat in the distance. Puff, slash easily sliced through the surface of the sea, leaving a bottomless crack on the surface of the sea. Looking at it from a distance, it looks like the entire sea has split open. Bada standing at the bow narrowed his eyes and looked at Sorata in surprise. This strength is too exaggerated. Did Marine make a mistake? That's it. Don't offer a reward of more than 1 billion yuan. Anyway, among the people he has met, only the Golden Lion 7 or 8 years ago can bring him such a great pressure. No wonder it can kill the Golden Lion. This strength, presumably even the world government, has to deal with it well. As Sorata's display of strength grew stronger, he became more and more reassured. Although I believe in Sorata, but the other party is the world government, it is impossible not to worry. On a broken sailboat, looking at the huge oncoming attack, the pirates completely stayed where they were. Hey, just kidding. How could there be such a terrifying slash in the world? The slash hadn't arrived, but the aura brought by the slash had already taken them out of their wits. This is bad luck. Just rushed through the extremely harsh beginning of the Grand Line. What is waiting is not a bright future, a brilliant life, but a huge blow of death. Boss. No way, the pirates can only hope for their captain. The bow, Titan, with bloodshot eyes and bulging veins on his forehead, looked up at the oncoming slash and roared loudly. Then the whole person suddenly turned into a huge elephant. The elephant is about 10 meters long and 7 or 8 meters high, occupying the entire bow of the ship. Because the elephant is too big, the boat under his feet kept screaming, creak, creak. Although he knew that the ship could no longer withstand his devastation, but... Hold head high. The elephant let out a loud cry, and headed towards the chopping blow, intending to use his hard tusks to fly or break the chopping blow. But all this is just his beautiful imagination. Advertisement. Every year, countless pirates like him attack the Grand Line. Some of them are lucky enough to get through the beginning, but they stay on the first island forever, never daring to move forward. Their confidence has been completely shattered by this devil-like sea, and they have stagnated. That's why most of the first island is full of pirates. Apparently, this captain of Titan, who has the same type of fruit as Jack the King of Ships, had the misfortune to meet Sorata, was unlucky to be self-righteous, and even unlucky to say the same thing as Jack. Although he said Jack's words, he didn't have Jack's life. See. There was a split second of sparks from the impact of the slash in the ivory, and then it slashed across the Colossus, across the sailboat. Puff. With a sound, it disappeared behind the dilapidated sailboat. Because the slash was too sharp, the giant statue has not yet fallen to the ground. However, from between his eyebrows, a line of blood was becoming like a volcano, expanding continuously and bleeding continuously. The Colossus raised its head, the blood in its eyes quickly faded, leaving only the desire for life. Is this the Grand Line? I'm really not reconciled. Puff, his tusk snapped, then his body, then the boat, and then the sea beneath him. Captain. The pirates exclaimed, feeling that they could catch something, but the ship and the sea separated, dividing them and the ship below them into two. The hull fell towards the middle, collided with each other amidst a boom, and then quickly slid towards the cracked sea below. What? The rest of the pirates were yelling, just like the villagers in the villages and towns they robbed. They were trembling, they were afraid, and they were even more afraid of death. But it didn't work. With Hi's mind, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. After a while, the entire pirate ship disappeared into the sea, of course, including these pirates. The Grand Line is different from the four seas. If one falls into the sea, there may still be a glimmer of life, but on the Grand Line, death is certain. Besides, it was Sorata's slashing abyss that fell into it. At this level, only the Murlocs have the possibility of surviving. Ding, on the bow of the Liberty, Sorata sheathed the knife, then bent her legs, sat cross-legged on the sheep's head in the bow, pulled off the gourd of wine, and drank. The Firebird looked at the camera excitedly, and above it was the whole process of Sorata's slash just now. Then he thought of something, and cast a grateful gaze towards the dilapidated sailboat that was gradually sinking into the sea in the distance. Although he didn't know the other party's name from beginning to end. But this does not affect the fact that the other party sent him a news cover. So, he couldn't help admiring in his heart, what a nice guy. Chapter 31 The world's strongest cipher pull Nameless Island. That is, the small island where the citizens of the Kingdom of Bath were imprisoned. In fact, this small island has a name in the hands of the world government, called Ore Island. Because when the island was discovered, the ground was filled with a lot of iron ore. So here, it has become the world government, weapons, and iron ore raw materials for various military industries. The citizens of the Kingdom of Bath were dispersed and distributed under the large and small mines on the island at this time. Of course, it is impossible for this island to only exist people from the Bath Kingdom, and there are also a large number of various slaves bought by the world government. These slaves lived under the mines on the island for a long time before the people of Bath Kingdom came. Since this small island is not on any of the 7 routes, it is impossible for ordinary people to discover it. Of course, except for those who are lucky, but if you really go to the island, you can't say that you were lucky. Because there are still a large number of world government guards on the island, and there is even a small team of CP organization members stationed for a long time. Although these garrison personnel do not have the strength of CP0 personnel, they are not comparable to ordinary pirates. It took Bada more than 2 years to get the permanent pointer of this island. Although it is only half a day's flight away from Bass Island, it can be said that it is impossible to reach this island without a permanent pointer. Because this is the Grand Line, the magnetic force is chaotic, and there is no orientation at all. At this time, on a boulder on the shore of Ore Island, 4 members of CP0 are standing on it, and on the beach in front of the boulder, there are 2 groups of black and white people. The white camp on the left is obviously Marine. The Marines' boats did not stop here, but in the deep water on the other side of the island. As for this place, it was just a shelling area they temporarily arranged. Because of this orientation, it is facing the orientation of Base Island. Since Ore Island is a summer island, it not only has a long coastline, but also a large sandy beach. The Marines are setting up artillery behind the beach at this time. Since there is no pier here, and the beach is shallow sea, ships cannot enter at all, so this place has become a natural blocking location. Mellison stood in front of Marine with a cigar in his hand, and the cloak of justice rattled under the sea breeze. When he came to Ore Island, he was told that what they were fighting was not the king of the Bath Kingdom, but the recently famous silver-haired pirates. Advertisement fight pirates. This made him breathe a sigh of relief. Although I don't know why the world government wants to guard this uninhabited island. But as long as he is not attacking civilians, but just attacking pirates, he is still very willing. Obviously, even Marine doesn't know what kind of darkness there is on this island. Coming. Mellison stared at the 2 small black dots rising from the sea level in the distance, his eyes fixed. He saw it, and of course the 4 CP0 members who stood taller also saw it. I saw a slender man standing in the leading position, wearing a black and white half and half suit and a black and white mask on his face, asking, "Hey gun, the ship with the windmill flag is the Silver Hair Pirates." One of the 3 CP0 members standing behind him, covered in a black cloak and carrying a huge black gun with a sniper rifle, replied, "Yes, Mr. Chorus. I didn't expect it to be so fast. It seems that those pirates and bounty hunters on Base Island are useless, and they didn't help at all." From the time point of view, the Silver Hair and the others set off early in the morning and arrived at this time. In order to deal with the Silver Hair, it was the first time in so many years that their CP0 team gathered together. It was only 3 of them who dealt with Buzz Bada 3 years ago, but Chorus did not come. There are mainly 4 of them in this team: Officer, Chorus, Member, Black Gun, that is, the person who attacked and seriously injured Bada 3 years ago. Members, Sada, and Kuru. Both of them are masters in physical arts, so they are both tall, and they are all wearing black and white suits. Looking at their uniform attire, it seems that what they are wearing under the black gun and black robe is also a black and white suit. At sea level, Sorata and others stood on the deck, looking at the coastline, looking at the coast, 2 teams with distinct meridians. The one in the white uniform should be Marine, and the one in black should be the CP organization. Calical, Marine and the world government have taken precautions. Indigo looked ahead and smiled slightly. It looks like it should be here specially waiting for us. The response is really not slow. Advertisement nebula flashed in Sorata's eyes, and a red light flashed. It seems that Marine acted overnight last night. That is to say, these guys should have notified Marine to act as soon as Bada released his ability. What? Sorata's gaze fell on several CP0 members on a rock by the shore, and finally stopped on Hey-gun. This guy is the person he sensed last night. He didn't expect to be a big shot. He thought this guy was just a little guy delivering information last night. CP0, an organization directly under the World Noble Celestial Dragons, is known as the strongest shield of celestial dragons, and the strongest cipher pull in the world. Its main duty is to protect the celestial dragons, and no matter what the celestial dragons do, they will have no bottom line. When CP0 does not protect the celestial dragons, it usually conducts secret activities, such as investigating arms smuggling, secret assassinations, and conducting secret arms transactions with countries that are not part of the world government. These guys are, so to speak, dead soldiers of the celestial dragons. They need to obey the 5 elders' orders absolutely, and they cannot resist even if they commit suicide. And it is not easy to join CP0, not only must be completely loyal to the celestial dragons, loyal to the world government, but also needs to be mastered by every member who joins. So each of these guys is a physical master who is not weaker than Marine Rear Admiral. Among them, the chief, that is, the small captain, is comparable to Marine Vice Admiral and Alternate Admiral. Of course, as the direct troops of celestial dragons, their privileges are far greater than those of Marines. They have the right to kill anyone who hinders the mission, whether it is a Marine general or a prince or aristocrat, they can kill at will. This also allows these guys to do things without any scruples and do whatever they want. 4 years later, the original CP9 member, Rob Lucci, even dared to challenge Marine Marshal Akainu, and even ordered him to send him 10 military aircraft. From here, we can also see the arrogance of these guys. There is no way, who said that behind these guys are directly world government and celestial dragons. To say that Marine is the force system of the world government for the sea and pirates. The CP organization is the dark organization of the world government for the entire world. For the ruling class, of course CP0 is important. So that's what caused it. They take care of what the Marine doesn't care about, and they kill what the Marine doesn't kill. In a word, CP0 can manage what Marine can manage, and even more CP0 can handle what Marine can't manage. Celestial Dragons licenses it. This is the world's strongest cipher pole, CP0, Chapter 32 landing on the island. Just stop the boat here, further forward, you will enter the range of Marine's shelling. Sorata looked at the coast in the distance, looked at the cannons, and said softly. This is not a pier, and there is no deep water area for them to park their boats, so they can only park here. To understanding, Adao replied, and quickly pulled a Luo and a Wa to turn around and stop the boat. Sorata looked at Bada, reached out and patted his shoulder. Don't be nervous, just this few people, it's impossible to stop us. Okay. Bada was slapped by Sorata, and his stiff body immediately relaxed. The closer he got to the Ore Island, the more nervous he became. On this island, there are nearly 10,000 citizens of his kingdom of Bath. I don't know how they spent the past 3 years. Anyway, he knew it would not be easy, because it is impossible for the world government to support tens of thousands of people in vain without doing anything. Aren't you going to move forward? Mawson looked at the 2 small sailboats parked in the distance, frowned slightly, and then let go. Since the other side is here, they will definitely land on the island. They are not in a hurry, they just need to wait. Silverhair, how did you land on the island? He knows that Sorata can fly, but it is impossible to fly with 2 ships. He did guess right, Sorata's space domain couldn't envelop the 2 ships just yet. Wait for the 2 ships to stop. Sorata took the lead, jumped off the Liberty, and stood firmly on the sea. And the sea surface below him seemed to be solidified when he jumped down, rising and falling with the seawater below. Kuina looked at Sorata, jumped down, and landed lightly beside Sorata, followed by the 3 of Iowa and Indigo. Amazing. Boom, Bada followed Indigo and jumped down. He stomped on the sea surface a few times, making a dong-dong sound, just like stepping on the real ground. Okay, tell your little brothers to come down. Try not to get too far away from me. Sorata looked ahead, with nebula in his eyes, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and he was in a good mood. Looking at the opposite side, there are not only 4 physique monsters CP0, but also a veteran vice admiral who is at the same time as Garp. I hope it can make him a little bit happier. Advertisement seeing that only a few of Bada's younger brothers were left to guard the 2 boats, while the others jumped off the boat, Sorata also turned her head, took the first step, and walked forward. Since you can't fly over it, and you can't drive a boat over it, just walk over it. As Sorata walked, the sea surface in front of him suddenly froze, while the sea surface behind him quickly thawed. In this tandem, there is always a solid sea surface for them to walk together. What the hell is this? He Chang looked at Sorata who was walking first in the distance, with a look of shock on his face. It seems that Silverhair's ability is not as simple as he reveals. Chorus looked at the sea in the distance, his eyes fixed. Do it, it is good. He Chang replied, and reached out to take off the huge sniper rifle he had been carrying on his back from his back. The left hand is holding the gun, the right hand is holding the rear handle of the gun, the index finger is placed on the trigger, and it is held in front of the eyes, and the eyes are fixed on the scope. I saw that the distance between Sorata and the others was infinitely shortened in the scope, as if they were right in front of them. He roughly felt the wind speed and a stream of armament hockey along his arm, wrapped around the bullet in the gun chamber. In the first half of the Grand Line, no pirate could escape his sniping, and I don't know how Silverhair will deal with it. Excitement flashed in his eyes, and he pulled the trigger on Sorata's head without hesitation. Boom, the sniper rifle made a gunshot like a cannon fire, and then a huge recoil acted on Hyken, but he remained motionless. The bullet that once shot badly, rushed out of the barrel quickly, and with a whoosh, it cut through the air, like a shooting star in the dark night, flashing sparks, and it was in front of Sorata and the others in the blink of an eye. Small, before Bada's heart could be said, he saw the bullet that had been stuck in his heart for 3 years suddenly stopped in front of Sorata, as if time stood still. It's really amazing. Sorata didn't stop walking, and still moved forward. When he walked in front of the bullet, he stretched out his hand to hold the bullet in his hand. Feel the hot breath above, and the armament hockey that doesn't dissipate. A pinch. Puff, the bullet in his hand was like a stuffy fart, with a puff. A puff of blue smoke rose from his hand and disappeared. Is it just entanglement? Sorata raised his head and stared at a few CP0s standing on the boulder in the distance, with a cold light in his eyes. If it's just entanglement, then these CP0s are useless at all. Do not. Advertisement can also be used as Kuina's whetstone. Thinking of this, he immediately lost interest in these CP0s, and instead turned his attention to the veteran Marine Vice Admiral, Mawson, standing at the front of the beach. Want to come to this armament hockey, he should not let him down. So easy. The black gun clearly saw in the scope how Sorata blocked his bullet, which made him shudder. If you can block his bullets so easily, then you can easily block their attacks, so how can you fight? Do not. He shook his head. If he was really that powerful, Silverhair would have been famous all over the world long ago, and he wouldn't wait until now. There must be some restriction, but he didn't find it. Thinking of this, his eyes were full of fighting spirit again. Their CP0, the strongest shield of the world government. And his officer. He looked at Chorus back, his eyes full of confidence. Mellison, Vice Admiral, don't you do it yet? At this moment, Chorus looked at Mellison in front of Marine, and said lightly, don't forget the order you received. I know, it's not your turn to dictate what I do. Don't forget your identity, Marison, Vice Admiral. Chorus stared darkly at Marison. Mellison met Chorus' eyes, frowned slightly, slowly raised his left hand, passed the cigarette to his mouth, bit it down, and took a deep breath. Then he turned his head to look at the sea, raised his right hand, and waved downward. Fire. Since it's a pirate, there's nothing to say, and he doesn't have any psychological burden to do it. To understanding, the Marine soldiers, after listening to Mellison's order, quickly ran up under the command of the commander, and then the commander waved his hand. All the artillery was aimed at Sorata and others, and then the fuses were ignited in unison. Accompanied by a loud noise, a puff of thick smoke rose suddenly, and dozens of shells flew towards Sorata and others at an extremely fast speed. The commander didn't stop at all, and then ordered the cannon to be loaded, and the second round of shells was quickly discharged. The third round, fourth round, the commander stopped gesturing until the barrel turned red and could no longer fire shells. On the other side is a big pirate offering a reward of 500 million, so we can't give him a chance to breathe. Chapter 33. One Sword Style, Chidori, looking at the countless shells flying over from the coast. Buzz's younger brothers were completely panicked. They couldn't help but stop in place, their eyes fixed on the sky. In their entire lives, they had never seen such a large-scale shell attack. There are only dozens of them, is it necessary? The corners of the mouths of the younger brothers twitched, and they subconsciously wanted to step back, but when they saw the backs blocking the front, they gritted their teeth quickly, stopped the fear in their hearts, and looked firmly at the sky. They believe in Bada, they believe in Sorata. It wasn't because of the thousands of corpses on Base Island in the morning, nor was it because of the dilapidated pirate ship that Sorata cut through the sea in the morning, but because of their boss. Their boss was standing next to Sorata with a calm face at this moment, not moving a muscle. Sensing the footsteps of everyone stopping, Sorata also stopped. He looked up at the countless black shells in the sky, with the corners of his mouth raised. As expected of Marine, no matter who you were facing, let a round of shells wash the ground first, and then talk about other things. As long as they are on the surface of the sea, it is really hard for ordinary pirates to escape when they encounter Marine's long-range shells and attack in all directions. To deal with these shells, only the swordsman's slash can be easier to cut, so as to avoid damage to the hull by the shells. On the sea, if the ship is damaged, it basically declares that the voyage is over. For shells, ordinary fists and kicks are not enough. Because this thing will explode. Don't look at Juan. Luffy and his group seem to be very relaxed, that's because Luffy is rubber, not afraid of shells at all, and there is Zoro. So on the sea, as long as it is a pirate group, there is no one who is not afraid of marine warships. Because of the gap in firepower between the two, there is a huge difference. Of course, the strength is strong, except for those who can fly. Like facing Sorata. 10 times more, dozens of times the shells are useless. Looking at the sky, Sorata slowly pulled out Zonkong, and quickly slashed in front of him casually. One-shot style, Chidori. I saw a huge silver-gray slash, rushing towards the air quickly. On the way to the air, the slash suddenly split into countless small slashes, forming a huge net that covered the sky and covered the sun. Slashing through the cannonballs, it was like 1,000 birds chirping together, deafening. Then the cannonballs all over the sky suddenly stopped in the air, split into two, and then exploded. It was like countless fireworks exploding at the same time. The airwaves generated by the explosion made the surrounding sea area turbulent, but Sorata's sea area was calm, and they couldn't feel the power of the explosion at all. Ding! Sorata looked at the sky, sheathed the knife, and nodded in satisfaction. This slash was specially practiced by him to crush large objects after fighting the Golden Lion. Advertisement. In an instant, 1,000 cuts. Although handsome and strong, it was a waste of energy. Wow! The younger brothers shouted in unison, looking at the fireworks all over the sky, their faces flashed with excitement. Such a scene can only be experienced by following Sorata. Firebird blushed, crouched down, and took a picture of Sorata slashing at the cannonballs in the sky. It's so elegant, as expected of the man who was honored by the president as the elegant swordsman. Every movement, every knife and sword, reveals the ultimate elegant art. This can be called an artistic slash, and he will never forget it in his life. Compared with the simplicity and roughness of other swordsmen, Sorata's slash does have an artistic beauty. Because his strength is strong enough, each of his slashes is unhurried and unhurried. Of course, handsome is indispensable. If it were an ugly ghost, not to mention slashing, it would be like dancing, and there would be no elegance. Already settled. A tall figure wearing a cloak of justice and glasses walked up to Marison, looked at the sea covered in thick smoke in the distance, and murmured. How is this possible? Mellison didn't even turn his head. You should be very clear about the ability of the silver hair. For the great swordsman, this bit of shelling may not even count as a warm-up. Yeah, that's right. Dai Wei, that is, this marine, pushed the frame of the mirror and stared at the front with serious eyes. Devi, Marison's second in command, Colonel Naval Headquarters, was also the commander of the previous bombardment. Naval Headquarters, as long as they are general-level officers, basically have their own fleet, and they can independently go to sea to catch pirates. So whether it is Rear Admiral or Vice Admiral, their adjutant, the highest official position is also Colonel. Even Admiral is no exception. Out. Melisson looked at the thick fog in the distance, his eyes fixed. I saw a hole in the thick fog facing them suddenly. And Sorata and the people behind him walked out slowly, completely unscathed. Just kidding. Such a dense shelling, unscathed. The Marine soldiers shouted loudly, with shocked expressions on their faces. This kind of shelling is much stronger than the shelling on military aviation. This is a positional battle prepared in advance, which is New World, and not many pirate groups can easily escape it. What's more, this is the first half of the Grand Line, a paradise. Advertisement, are shells useless at all? Chorus, looking at Sorata, narrowed his eyes. As Sorata and the others approached, a domineering aura came oncoming. Boom, boom, bang bang bang. Marine soldiers, one by one, rolled their eyes and slowly fainted to the ground. Conquerors, is it that strong? The complexions of Chorus and Melisson became ugly. Conquerors of this scale are only available to the world's top pirates. Ordinary conquerors' hockey will never stun these elite marines. See. Sorata stepped on the sand with both feet, and due to her weight, she sank a little. Then Kuina, Ahua, and Indigo, who followed Sorata, went ashore together. After Bada and his little brothers went ashore, Sorata put away the space domain and turned to look at Melisson. Hey, Marine, do you know what you're protecting? What? Melisson looked at Sorata, puzzled. Okay. Just when Sorata was about to speak, there was a whoosh, and a slender and tall figure suddenly appeared beside him. The tall figure raised his foot and quickly kicked Sorata's head. Tempest kick. A white crescent-shaped wind blade quickly shot towards Sorata's head. Well, are you looking for death in such a hurry? Sorata looked at Chorus, who suddenly appeared, tilted his head, and easily dodged the wind blade, and then a cold light flashed in his eyes. Taking a step forward, he disappeared instantly and appeared in front of Chorus. If you want to die so much, I will fulfill you. As he spoke, he raised his right foot, and armament hockey wrapped around his foot in an instant, and kicked Chorus fiercely on the waist. Boom, the gust of wind from the collision rattled his hair. Looking at Chorus again, nothing happened, and his kick on Chorus' waist was like kicking on a wall made of steel. Chapter 34 Vice Admiral, a veteran of the same period as Garp. Iron Body. Sorata looked at the place where his feet touched Chorus, a strange flash in his eyes. As expected of CP0, he has cultivated Iron Body to this level, but he doesn't know the upper limit. Thinking of him quickly retracting his feet, his left foot was instantly covered with armed colors. He turned around, spun 360 degrees, and with a bang, it hit Chorus' chest. Boom. The greater wind pressure rushed towards the surroundings, causing the little brothers behind Sorata to involuntarily narrow their eyes. Is it still useless? What the hell? Although his boxing skills are not good, it is not something that ordinary people can catch, not to mention that he is also entangled with armament hockey. Looking down at the surprise in Sorata's eyes, Chorus calmly said, Your kicks are useless to me. I am the CP0 officer known as the strongest shield of celestial dragons. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand and inserted his index finger into Sorata's head. Finger pistol. His iron body has long been cultivated to the point where it can be moved and cast. So this guy can use iron body unlimitedly in actual combat to maximize defense. Red light flashed in Sorata's eyes, and he turned his head to the right to easily avoid Chorus' fingers, then bent down, holding the knife in his left hand and the handle of Zonkong in his right hand, staring up at Chorus' chest. Fist is useless. What about the knife? Draw your sword and chop. With a flash of light, it slanted upwards and quickly slashed towards Chorus' chest. Feeling the endless sharpness on his chest, Chorus hurriedly put a layer of dark armament hockey on his chest. Boom, after only a moment of stalemate, Chorus was chopped off by the power of Sorata's knife. With a whoosh, it flew towards the pile of rocks behind the boulders on the shore. Boom, it smashed hard into the ground. Sorata put the knife back into its sheath, looking at the pile of rocks surrounded by smoke and dust. The corner of her mouth twitched. Pretend. I let you pretend. Return iron body. If you have the ability, you don't need armament hockey. Ha 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 ha. Sorata laughed, pulled off the wine gourd and took a sip, then turned to look at Melisson. Hey, old man, I heard that you were an old marine who was at the same time as Garp. How can you be so miserable? You can only be in the served as the head of the branch base near the first island of the Grand Line. Melisson looked at Sorata, and slowly took off the marine coat on her body, pulled off the tie, and unbuttoned the top of the shirt, revealing her strong upper body. The old man's height is not considered tall. He is not as tall as Sorata, but at this moment, he exudes an aura that only a peerless powerhouse can have. He raised his hands in front of him, squeezed his fingers together, and made a pop sound, like frying beans. Since it is known that I am at the same time as Garp, and was placed on the first island, do you know why? Advertisement. Why? Sorata looked excitedly at Melisson. Although the chief of CP0 just now is strong, but his strength is limited. Sorata really wants to kill him, that is, it is a one-shot thing. But the old man in front of him was different. He felt the pressure from the opponent. Why? Melisson attached the black armament hockey with both hands, and kicked his feet on the ground. With a sound of whoosh, he appeared in front of Sorata in an instant. Of course it's because the old man is strong enough. After finishing speaking, he clenched his right hand into a fist, pulled it back, and then slammed into Sorata like a fired shell. So fast. Sorata looked at Marison with a look of surprise in her eyes. The old man's shaving was much faster than the CP0 chief just now, so fast that it was like teleporting. Seeing the pitch-black fist in front of him, feeling the sharpness above, Sorata quickly put away his contempt, and dared not greet with his fist, because these old guys, it can be said that they have spent their entire lives on fists and feet. Facing the fist that Marison had practiced for decades, he drew his knife instantly, and the knife was covered with armed colors. Draw your sword and chop. Clang, the two were in a stalemate, and a storm formed by a shockwave rushed towards the surroundings recklessly, and a piece of the beach was sunken under their feet. The storm blew across the beach, causing the sand on the entire beach to tremble and flutter with the wind, making no matter whether it was Sorata's group, Marine's side, or CP's side, they couldn't help but head towards the shore. Old man, you are quite old, and your strength is not bad. Sorata stared at the pressure on the old man's fist, the veins on his arm and forehead popping out. This old man was the third strong man he met. The first two, the first being the Golden Lion, died. The second one is Marine Admiral, a yellow-skinned monkey. Since he didn't want to fight this guy, he tried it out and settled down hastily. The third one is the old man in front of him. As expected of Marine's veteran Vice Admiral, with this strength, as long as he is willing, no pirate should be able to pass by him. No wonder the number 5 route, there are basically no supernovas, and the powerful pirate group sails from here to Sabodi Archipelago. He heard this news from Huo Bird. I thought it might be luck, or it might be that the countries on this route are too powerful, such as Bada in the Kingdom of Bath. Now I know, it turned out to be this old guy. As long as there is this guy guarding the door, let alone a supernova, as long as there is a little bit of fame and strength in the pirate group, they should all be sent into the submarine prison by Melisson, impelled down. Sensing the armed color on Zonkong, which faintly threatened to collapse, Sorata quickly retracted the knife calmly, then quickly replenished the armed color, and quickly slashed towards Melisson's fist. Clang, the best use of armed color. Sorata stared at Marison, excitement flashed in her eyes. Advertisement. Melisson looked at Sorata, another fist rushed towards Sorata's head. Little ghost, since you met the old man, you are unlucky, you should go to impel down for a walk. That's not certain. Sorata looked at Marison, the corners of her mouth were upturned, her eyes were red, she twisted her toes on the ground, rubbed her ears against Marison's left fist, and retreated to the right. Can you run away? Melisson looked at Sorata, paused with his left fist in the air, then turned around, quickly changed direction, and smashed it down on Sorata's face. The old man is so cruel. I have such a handsome face, you are willing to be cruel. Feeling the inevitable fist in front of him, a trace of helplessness flashed in Sorata's eyes, and he disappeared in place in an instant. Okay. Melisson's fist went through Sorata's head and stopped in the air. Between movement and stillness, what is displayed is unparalleled control over strength and over one's own body. Is it an afterimage? Melisson stood where he was, red light flashed in his eyes, and the armed color on his hands gradually receded. He shouted to the outside, Little devil, do you know how to run? It's not running, but I have something to explain. The figure of Sorata appeared next to Kuina on the shore, looked at Melisson on the beach, and chuckled lightly. Don't worry, wait a minute, I'll fight with you. As he spoke, he turned his head to look at Bada. Bada, let's separate here. All the masters on this island are here. What you have to do is to rescue your own people. Sorata. All right. Sorata interrupted him, I'll wait until I get back to say what I'm grateful for. Now is not the time to relax. You have to hurry up, the world government and marine might come to support you at any time. At that time, I will be no match for 4 hands with 2 fists, that's not good. Understood. Bada looked at Sorata with determination in his eyes, then quickly turned around and rushed into the pile of rocks on the bank with his younger brothers. He has been to this island more than once in the past few years, and he already knows where the people on the island are being held. Hey, wait. Firebird looked at Bada, rushed over quickly, stopped them, and took out a camera phone bug from his backpack and handed it to Bada. Bada, take this recording phone bug and record all the situations on the island, so that we can make news when the time comes. He wants to record Sorata's heroic fighting posture here, but he will not follow Bada to watch the human tragedy on the island. If it weren't for the fact that their newspaper had a deal with Sorata, he might not have handed over the camera phone bug to Bada. Because he has no interest in what happened on this island. Right now, he's only interested in Sorata. Chapter 35. Sometimes the truth is so simple and ridiculous. Seeing Bada's group disappear into the rubble on the shore, the members of the CP organization in black subconsciously wanted to chase after them. The goal of their mission this time is Bada. As for the silver-haired gang, there are naturally others to face it. Hey, you'd better stay here. Just when they were about to act, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. There are not many members of the CP organization that came this time, only a dozen or so, because they know that if they want to deal with the silver-haired, badass gang, the general members of the organization are simply cannon fodder. Just like those marine soldiers, even the silver-haired conquerors hockey can't handle it. These dozen or so members of the CP organization are all people who have mastered at least one of the 6 styles, so they followed them. They looked at Sorata, tense and wary. However, Sorata just stood there and didn't move. These guys are the best sparring partners for the 3 of Ahua. At this moment, behind these CP organization members, Ahua and Aluo had transformed into half-orcs, and Atao also charged towards these people from behind with a cigarette in his mouth and a long knife in his hand. Indigo stood quietly where he was. He was a doctor, not a combatant. He would only act when the three of Ahua were in danger. At the same time, in the rock pile behind the boulder, in an impact hole, Chorus slowly climbed up. Cough cough. Cough cough. He touched his chest and coughed. On his chest, there was a knife wound that was not deep but long enough, and blood was constantly oozing out. Sir, are you all right? Beside the pothole, the three of Sorata looked at Chorus' wound with serious eyes. Fine. Chorus waved his hand, then looked down at the bloodline in his hand, with a fierce look in his eyes. He really underestimated Silverhair a little bit. If he hadn't put on an armed defense at the end, he might have been killed instantly by Silverhair. The flash of the sword at that moment made his fruit ability useless. How is the situation? The Silverhair gang let Bada go deep. No problem. Chorus tidied up his coat and hair and then walked forward. Do you really think that there is no one guarding the rear? Advertisement. This is the most important source of raw steel ore for the world government. He was the main planner of the attack on Bath 3 years ago, and of course knew more about the island. 3 years ago, a large-scale landslide suddenly broke out in the underground mine of this mining island, which also caused the death of a large number of slaves. Slaves also die when they die, but the death of so many slaves also delays the mining of ore, and even delays the production of the world government arsenal. So this is the tragedy of Bath. Otherwise, it is really impossible. For one devil fruit, a country will really be wiped out, and this country is still a member of the world government. All of this is for the population, for the tens of thousands of mining population on Base Island. Compared to the arsenal of the world government, the destruction of a small country is nothing more than an insignificant matter. Chorus stood on the giant mountain with the black gun again, and he didn't even look at the three Awa who were fighting with the members of the CP organization. As soon as his eyes came, he fixed on Sorata. Silverhair, do you know who you are fighting against now? Oh, Sorata's figure suddenly disappeared, and instantly appeared on the giant mountain, standing opposite Chorus. He raised the wine gourd, took 2 gulps, then put down his hands, looked at Chorus, and smiled lightly. Against who? You ask who I am against, aren't you? As he said that, he tilted his head and joked. Could it be that the whole world can't make it, ha 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 ha. And you? Sorata put away her smile, and said indifferently, it's impossible to represent the whole world. We cannot represent the whole world, but the flag behind us represents the whole world. Chorus looked at Sorata with dark, indifferent eyes. Do you really want to be an enemy of the whole world? Oh. Are you an enemy of the whole world? The corner of Sorata's mouth twitched, and he looked at Chorus with a murderous look in his eyes. He didn't say much, and quickly drew his knife. One sword-style EI slash wave. I saw a huge crescent-shaped silver-gray slash, slanting horizontally, rushing towards the 4 of Chorus quickly. So what if you are an enemy, just you guys, don't you really think that I can't kill you? As he said that, his figure fluctuated, he took a step first, and appeared behind Hay Lance in an instant, leaving an afterimage on the spot. Advertisement. This guy is the only one here who can cause fatal damage to the 3 of Iowa and Kuina. He is worried about putting this guy here, so the first person he killed was this guy. Just as the black gun was shaved, before it left the ground, he suddenly felt a breath behind him that made his spine chill. But he just used his strength now, and he couldn't change the direction even if he wanted to, and then a cold light like a Shinigami sickle flashed across his neck in an instant. He sensed the existence of Sorata with his sense of knowledge, but his body couldn't react at all. Puff, his body froze when he just took off, as if he had been immobilized by someone. Hei Chang rolled his eyes, looked at Sorata who was close at hand, his lips squirmed, trying to speak, but he couldn't, his eyes were full of unwillingness. Because your attack can't hit the opponent, but you can't dodge the opponent's attack. He dedicated his whole life to the world government, and only when he was dying did he realize that he didn't have much past to recall. This is why Kizaru is so strong, he doesn't know anymore. But in the eyes of 2 people with a gap, speed is power, and this is the real truth. What is not sad is that they are people. They have done too many evil things in their lives, and they are not worthy of sympathy at all. Sorata disappeared in place before the last ray of light in the eyes of the black gun disappeared, and appeared at the original position, overlapping with the afterimage. Without the knowledge of the 3 of Chorus, the black gun completed the attack beheaded. Sad and sad. He knew that Sorata was terrifying, but he never expected it to be so terrifying. With this speed, only Kizaru could compete with it in marine and world government. They are basically war orphans who have been cultivated and brainwashed by the world government since childhood. Hei Chang rolled his eyes, and took a last look at the sky. The unwillingness in his eyes dissipated, leaving a touch of reminiscence at last. And the picture with the deepest memory is the few happy memories when they were in the orphanage when they were young. Sadly, their minds are no longer their own. How long has that been? For people of the same level, speed is not only weight, but also strength, which is inaccurate. At that time, what should be fought is reaction speed. These guys are actually the evil of the world, an organization born out of it. Sorata looked at the last gleam of brilliance in Hagun's eyes, and his eyes were complicated for a moment. He had no sympathy for these CP0 members. Sad? Chapter 36. Cherish life and stay away from Iron Body? Chorus stood still and did not move. He stared intently at the oncoming slash, stretched out his hands, spread his 5 fingers, and pushed forward. Sada and Kuru next to him made the same movement as the black gun, and shot to both sides with a swish. Chorus, who didn't know that Sorata had already killed one of them, looked at Sorata proudly. Silver hair, let me show you my strength now. As he said that, an invisible transparent cover suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking between him and Zan Shi. He looked contemptuously at the silver-gray slash in front of him, and said loudly, I am a rebounder who ate the Paramisha rebound fruit, and can bounce back all attacks. Boom, Sorata's slash was blocked by the transparent cover in front of this guy. Chorus felt the power of the slash through the barrier, stared at Sorata, and shouted arrogantly, Is this the power? I thought it was so strong. As he spoke, he pushed his hands forward, Your own slash will be returned to you. I saw Zan Shi, who was still in a stalemate with him just now, quickly turn around and rushed towards Sorata. Interesting. Sorata had just merged with the afterimage, and a smile flashed in his eyes when he saw the slash coming towards him. Bounce everything? So, let me see if you can actually bounce everything back. As he spoke, his right hand holding Zan Kong's hilt hard, veins popped out of his arm, and his arm instantly grew bigger. Then a domineering aura rose from his body, causing several wisps of purple thunder to peer out of thin air around him. Sorata stared at Chorus, and the purple-black hockey instantly entangled in the air, and then kicked his feet on the ground. Whoosh! Ignoring the slash reflected in front of him, his figure instantly disappeared in front of the slash and appeared in front of Chorus. He raised his knife and chopped it down hard, God slash. Rebound everything. If he really had the ability to rebound everything, this guy would have been sent by the world government to fight the 4 emperors long ago. He didn't believe that he could really rebound everything. It's not the bug ability of the barrier fruit, even the barrier fruit, he can consume him to death. Boom. The purple-black blade collided with the transparent cover in front of Chorus, and a loud sound resounded through the entire coastline. It was like a bell, and with the wind pressure formed by the shockwave, it rushed to the surroundings instantly. Chorus looked at Sorata, who was close at hand, with a confident face, but before he could smile, there was a sound like a broken mirror in front of him. It was this voice that completely pulled him back to reality. Crack, crack. He couldn't believe his eyes. He stared at the cover he had formed with his abilities, his hands trembling and using all his strength, desperately trying to stabilize the cover. But it doesn't help. The next moment, under his frightened eyes, the transparent cover in front of him split open instantly, and even the surrounding space was covered with cracks like spider webs. Sorata looked at Chorus, looked up and laughed. Advertisement. Aren't you arrogant? Show me another arrogant one, ha 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 ha. Then he stopped laughing and looked down at Chorus with indifferent eyes. If that's all you have, go to hell. As he said that, with a strong right hand, he easily smashed the transparent cover in front of Chorus, and then quickly slashed towards Chorus' chest. Chorus looked at the knife light that was close at hand, his pupils shrank, and his brain turned wildly. That's too late. Judging from the sharpness of Sorata's knife, it is impossible for him to follow up anyway. But it's all now. If you can't take it, you have to take it, otherwise you have to wait for death. His eyes are red, his legs are slightly bent, and his arms and chest are covered in black armament hockey. Then yelled. Iron Body. Sorata looked at Chorus speechlessly. These guys seem to have a mysterious confidence in Iron Body. Haven't you heard a word? Cherish life, stay away from Iron Body. Pulling away, Sorata looked at Chorus, his eyes fixed, and he swung the knife without hesitation. Originally, he wanted to keep this guy as a training partner for Kuina, but he didn't know that this guy had such a pervert fruit ability. Although his fruit is of little use to the world's top powerhouses. But for those at his level, and those below his level. No, even for someone whose attack power is not strong but surpasses him, it is a terrifying ability. If he hadn't used Conqueror's Entanglement, he might not be able to break this guy's ability. Melisson on the beach in the distance looked at Sorata, his pupils constricted violently. Conqueror's winding. There are only a few people in this world who know this stuff, and these few people, without exception, are all top in the world. He didn't expect that Sorata would do it too, and it looks like it's pretty easy. Feeling the sharpness of Sorata's knife, he kicked his feet on the ground and rushed towards Sorata quickly. He couldn't just watch CP0 die in front of him, but he was fast. Sorata's sword light was faster, and when he just stepped on the ground, Chorus's fruit ability was broken, and when he was halfway through the charge, Sorata had already swung the sword. From the time Sorata swung the first knife to the second knife now, the time in between is only a few seconds. A few seconds, a few blinks, a few breaths, and 2 steps. But for the strong, it is enough to kill several people. Clang, Zan Kong slashed firmly on Chorus' right shoulder, making a loud sound like steel hitting. The boulder under Chorus's feet quickly collapsed with his feet as the center, and then exploded directly. Advertisement feeling the strength and tingling pain on his shoulders, Chorus' eyes were blood red, and his teeth were clenched tightly together. I can't bear it, and I can't hide it, must die. Just as his body was thinking about falling down, Zan Kong cut through his armor and skin without stopping, just like cutting tofu with a knife. Puff quickly cut across his entire body. His body paused for a moment, and then shot down at the speed of a comet. Boom, it shattered the boulder and shot into the ground, making a huge roar. Dust rose everywhere, covering the entire ground. Sada, Kuru and Melisson, who were in midair, saw this scene up close. Want to save. Powerless. They stretched out their fists, knocking away the stones from the boulder shattering, and stared at Sorata with shock in their eyes. The faces of Sada and Kuru were even more frightened. They are also human beings, and they are also afraid of death. And Sorata's terror made them feel the breath of death up close. Until then, the body of He Chang, who lost the support of the boulder, slowly fell down. The fall of the black gun immediately attracted everyone's attention. They looked at the black gun with the head separated and falling into the dust below, and the fear in their eyes grew stronger. When it comes to chorus death, they saw it with their own eyes. That black gun. They don't know it all. You guy, when did you kill the black gun? Sada and Kuru landed on the beach in the distance, looked up at Sorata who was parked in the air, and spoke loudly. They have always claimed to be the strongest shield of the celestial dragons, and they are proud of it. Looking at Sorata at this time, their voices couldn't help stammering and trembling. Oh, you say that this person is covered in black robes and is always sneaky. Sorata looked at Sada and the two, smiled lightly. Of course it's. What is it? It's. Sorata suddenly looked up and laughed, his voice full of banter. I won't tell you. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 37. If this is your justice, then you should die. You be asterisk 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 d. Sada and Kuru watched Sorata speechless for a while, then kicked their feet on the ground and rushed towards Sorata quickly. They are the strongest shields of the celestial dragons, the shadows of the world government. Fear, non-existent. No matter how strong Sorata is, they must go. Hey, your opponent is me. Just as they were rushing forward, a pink figure suddenly appeared in front of them. The pink figure is like a charming butterfly, dotted with dark blue soft hair like the sea. Kuina rushed into the air for a pause, quickly drew his sword, and slashed at Sada and Kulu. Court death. They can't beat the silver-haired ones, can they still beat you, a woman with a bounty of 20 million? After all, they are also CP0, Tempest Kick, Tempest Kick. Seeing Kuina, Sada and Kulu paused for a while, then raised their legs, facing Kuina. There were two intersecting silver-white Tempest Kicks. Slash. No, it's just the wind blade formed by kicking skills. Kuina's eyes fell on the two wind blades, and a jet-black armament hockey gradually wrapped around the words of Hedao from her arm. Swipe up. Clang, the blade of Hidao's character and the wind blade formed by Tempest Kick collided instantly. Too weak. Feel the power of the wind blade passing through the knife to the hand. Kuina's hand holding the knife exerted a little force, and easily shattered the two wind blades, and then quickly slashed towards Sada and Kulu's kicking feet. What, so strong? Although the Tempest Kick is not comparable to the flying slash of the swordsman, it is not something that ordinary people can easily smash. Seeing the rapidly approaching Lengyu Daoguang, armament hockey was instantly placed on their feet. Then subconsciously use iron body. Clang, the moment their feet collided with the blade of Hidaoyuan, they felt a huge force acting on the whole body along the feet, and then shot towards the back quickly during the stalemate stage where the iron body could not move. With a bang, it crashed into the beach behind, forming two human-shaped craters. You really can't underestimate it. Sada sat up from the smoky pit, looked at another pothole on the side. It's all right, Kuru. Fine. Kuru stood up, looking through the smoke and dust at Kuina who was walking quickly towards them on the beach. There was no longer a trace of contempt in his eyes. Sada, you have to be serious, otherwise, advertisement. No. Sada also looked at Kuina, frowning slightly, eyes serious. Tempest Kick is useless in front of such a swordsman, the only way is to fight in close quarters. Thinking of this, they kicked their feet on the ground at the same time. Shave. With a sound of whoosh, he disappeared in place, and instantly appeared on both sides of Kuina, raised his fists covered with armament hockey, one for the head and the other for the waist, and quickly smashed towards Kuina. Go to hell. Kuina's steps forward stopped, his eyes were red, his legs were bent, his head was down, and he passed the fist that was coming towards his head. At the same time, the right hand holding the knife quickly swung the knife. Clang, he easily accepted the fist coming towards his waist. Think this is the end? Innocent. Sadako-Kulu looked at Kuina, stretched out his other hand, instantly put on his arm color, and quickly threw it at Kuina. Competing speed? Kuina raised her head and looked at Sada and Kulu, her eyes were cold, and the red light in her eyes moved with the light of the knife. With a kick of both feet on the ground, there was a sound of whoosh, and he stepped back. Then he held the knife in both hands and swung it quickly. The blade and fist collided quickly. The sound of dang dang can be heard endlessly. Air. Sorata tore off the wineboard, looked at Kuina, drinking the wine, and suddenly tilted his head. A huge black fist brushed past his head. He turned his head and looked at Melisande who appeared suddenly, with the corners of his mouth upturned. He smiled lightly and said, "Old man, sneak attack is not a good quality." Melisande looked down at Sorata, took a puff of cigarettes, and said with a serious face, "There is no sneak attack when dealing with you pirates." After speaking, he made an uppercut with his left hand, which was aimed at Sorata's head. Sorata felt the sharpness of Melisande's fist, kicked her feet, dodged backwards, and easily avoided the punch. Then he raised his wineboard and raised his head to take a sip. He lowered his head, looked at Melisande, and asked, "Old man, can I ask you a question?" "What?" Melisande paused, stepped on the mooncloth, stood in the air, stared at Sorata, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Seeing that Sorata didn't want to fight him at this time, he could only retract his fist, took off the cigar in his mouth with his right hand, and exhaled at Sorata. "Boy, Can I ask you a question? Sorata was drinking when she stopped suddenly. Oh, what's your problem? He looked at Marison with an expression of interest on his face. Melisson raised his right hand, took a puff of cigarette, looked at Sorata, and asked. Boy, why did you go to sea? And why do you want to help the Kingdom of Bath? Hey, old man, this is not a problem, advertisement. Sorata tilted her head, looked at Melisson, and raised her eyebrows. But these two questions, I can answer you. Why go to sea, of course, is to see what the world looks like. Don't you think there are too many places to take risks and play in this world? The Fishmen Island, Sky Island, Desert Kingdom, giant animals. All kinds of things, even Bath is a miraculous island. If I stay in my hometown all the time, how can I experience such a beautiful life? Adventure? Melisson, memories flashed in his eyes. He has met countless pirates in his life, but he has not met many pirates that are purely for adventure. Since it's an adventure, why come to the Kingdom of Bath again? He looked at the corpses of Chorus and Heichang in the rubble pile below, frowned slightly, and stared up at Sorata with fixed eyes. And also killed people from CP0. You should know who you are fighting against when you kill them. Sorata looked at Melisson and asked strangely, Old man, I'm a pirate. Helping the Kingdom of Bath is of course because they paid for it. As for killing CP0, Sorata held up the wine gourd and took a sip. Aren't these guys my enemies? Since they are enemies and they made a move, of course they are ready to die. Do you want me to let them go? I said, old man, don't ask such a mentally handicapped question. Oh, Melisson nodded. I was confused. I almost forgot that you were a pirate. Since I have answered all your questions, can you answer one question for me? What? If this is your justice, then you'd better die. Melisson paused her smoking hand, looked up at Sorata, and said nothing. Also, old man, you must know about the Kingdom of Bath. Of course I know, otherwise what would I do? Melisson shook his head, answered crisply, then looked up at Sorata and asked in doubt, you know? After being silent for a while, he still replied, well, it's me. Right. Just like this, you still come to stop Bada. Is this your justice, and your Marine's justice? Can you tell me? I know you didn't do anything 3 years ago, so why did you come to stop Bada 3 years later? Sorata stared at Melisson and chuckled, if you can make me enjoy the next battle, I might be able to tell you, otherwise you should go find it yourself. Sorata leaned forward, stared at Melisson, put away the smile on his face, and said seriously, you are the one who helped CP0 break the Bath 3 years ago. But how could Sorata tell him now? Melisson also wanted to know about the island. Sorata nodded, then stared at Melisson and asked loudly, then do you know what is going on this island? And who are the people here? There's no need to explain the matter of Marine to you, a pirate. As he spoke, he hung the wine gourd on his waist, touched the handle of Zonkong's knife with his right hand, stared at Melisson, his eyes turned cold, and kicked his feet in the air, and with a swish, he quickly moved towards Melisson. Senator rushed. Do not know. Chapter 38 The upcoming decisive battle. Justice. Marison looked at Sorata who was rushing towards him. His eyes were fixed, his fist was instantly covered with armament hockey, facing the Zonkong blade, his right hand retracted and quickly smashed forward. Clang, the shock wave instantly dispersed the smoke and dust below, and then the gravel flew in all directions. Melisson looked down at Sorata, who was close at hand, and said loudly, you little brat, are you qualified to question our Marine's justice, and my justice? Speaking of his left fist, he quickly smashed towards Sorata's head. Do not make jokes. Although he knows that there are many big and small problems in Marine, his justice, Marine's justice, cannot be questioned by a pirate. He didn't say how great he was in this life, but at least he had a clear conscience. Oh, block, Sorata withdrew the knife and made a backhand, blocking Melisson's left fist. She looked up at Melisson with the corner of her mouth upturned. Speaking of pain, did you become angry from embarrassment? Since you care about the word justice so much, you should do justice well. As he spoke, Sorata raised his blade and then quickly slashed down. Clang, Melisson retracted his right hand and punched quickly, easily blocking the oncoming blade. Boy, don't be too arrogant. The old man has carried the banner of justice for decades, which is beyond your imagination. I can't imagine it, but at least I know that it is a complete mistake to stop Bada, you Marine, and your justice this time. Regarding Sorata's words, Melisson did not refute, his hands swung quickly, and quickly collided with Sorata's blade. Up to now. No, it should be that after knowing the location of the mission, he already knew that the island was not simple. But he can't do anything. Even if he didn't want to, he couldn't disobey the orders of the world government. Fortunately, after they came to the island, the task assigned to Marine was to try their best to stop the silver-haired gang. It also allows him to avoid confronting Bada. He is Marine, and catching pirates is only natural. As for the people and things on this island, he will go to see it himself when the time comes. Advertisement in a sea area not far from the Ore Island, a large Marine fleet is quickly heading towards the Ore Island. Taking a closer look, I saw a sun umbrella standing on the bow of the largest military ship. Under the sun umbrella, a tall figure wearing yellow stripes and an orange suit was lying on a deck chair, drinking tea leisurely. Behind him stood 5 tall figures exuding a terrifying aura. Stallo Berry looked at his boss, Paluzolino, aka Kizaru, with a look of helplessness in his eyes. Lord Paluzolino, we are going to deal with the silver-haired gang this time, please be a little more serious. Well, don't be so nervous. Kizaru put down his teacup, looked up at Staloberry, and waved his hands. I don't know what the Marine headquarters and the world government are thinking, and suddenly launched a buster call to an uninhabited island. If you say start it, and let him catch up. He intends to take advantage of this vacation to relax. Unexpectedly, he just caught up with the buster call to the silver-haired gang, and was summoned back urgently. Buster call, formed by the Marine headquarters authorized by the world government to carry out indiscriminate and destructive attacks on the signaled areas. Also known as Big Killer, used to completely wipe out things and people in an area that threatens the rule of the world government. Comes with a gold phone bug and a silver phone bug. The gold phone bug is run by the Admiral of Headquarters and the Marine Marshal to send out a notification signal when he decides to launch a buster call, while the silver phone bug is placed in the Naval Headquarters to receive the golden call insect notification signal. In addition, you can also authorize the golden phone bug to others. Buster call is a brutal and inhumane incineration attack consisting of 10 ships and an elite force of 5 vice admirals and marines. The warships performing the buster call are the strongest and most aggressive in the Marine, all built by the Royal Shipyard Water 7, and there are about 1,000 Marine soldiers on each warship. Hey, it's exhausting. The main reason is that there is no overtime pay, which is quite annoying. Kizaru picked up his teacup and looked ahead, thinking wildly. At this moment, a middle-aged man among the 5 vice admirals standing behind him with Stowberry spoke up. The middle-aged man has a mohawk hairstyle, long dark purple hair tied behind his head, forming a bun, and a mustache that is also dark purple. He is wearing a lavender-striped suit and a dark blue shirt, wearing a white tie. Behind him was a white marine coat, 2 medals on his chest, and black leather shoes on his feet. A samurai sword is slung around his waist. He looked at Kizaru, and asked with a serious face, Paluzolino Admiral, here we are the only one who has fought against Yinfa. How is his strength? The middle-aged man is a frequent visitor to Buster Call. He is the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Flying Squirrel, the base chief of the Marine Branch G1, and a disciple of the former Marine Admiral Black Arm Zephyr. Of course, the 5 vice admirals standing here, including Paluzolino, except Staloberry, are all disciples of the former Marine Admiral Black Arm Zephyr. The 5 vice admirals who came this time, besides Flying Squirrel and Staloberry, also included Hua Shaoshan, Doberman, and Ghost Spider. All of them are Vice Admiral, a veteran pirate elite. Advertisement moreover, these 5 Vice Admirals are all masters of both swordsmanship and physique. It can be said that they are all under Admiral, the strongest group of Vice Admirals. Well, silver hair. That guy is a monster. Kizaru put down his teacup, looked at the coastline gradually revealing its outline in the distance, his eyes flashed. He stretched out his fingers, pushed the brown sunglasses in front of him, and slowly stood up. Although I don't know why the world government is so eager to eliminate the silver-haired gang. Not the silver-haired gang, but the small island in the distance. Even with Buster Call's shells, it can only destroy the island, but it is useless to the flying silver hair. Since there is no use at all, and Buster Call is ordered, there is only one possibility. Destroy this uninhabited island. Some things, even if he is Admiral, he doesn't know. For example, right now, he doesn't know what secrets lie on this small island, and the world government will not hesitate to launch a Buster Call to destroy it. Of course he didn't know. Not to mention him, even the current Marine Marshal, Sengoku, doesn't know the secrets of this small island. Sengoku was speechless for a while when he received the order to launch a Buster Call to this small island. It's weird that Buster Call can catch the silver-haired guy. That guy is not an ordinary pirate. As long as the ship is destroyed and trapped on an island, even if it is a waste, he can be caught. That guy can fly. In the world of One Piece, being able to fly and being strong is the most difficult pirate to catch, and the silver-hair has the ability to teleport, so it is even more difficult to start. Otherwise he would not be able to deal with the Marine in the first half of the Grand Line. The branch, specially ordered, can turn a blind eye to the silver-haired pirates. Since he knew, it is impossible for the world government not to know, and to issue such an order like this, it must have other goals, and the silver-haired gang is just incidental. Even if he knew what was going on, he didn't ask. He knew that even if he asked, it was impossible to get an answer. It is not his turn to intervene as a Marine Marshal in the matter of the world government. All he could do was follow the instructions, summon Vice Admiral as soon as possible, launch Buster Call, and call back Paluzolino, who happened to be on vacation in the first half of the Grand Line. With Paluzolino around, at least someone can restrain silver hair. Otherwise, with these Vice Admirals, in front of the silver-haired teleportation, they are just boards being beaten one by one. Chapter 39. You guys are too obvious. Clang, clang, clang. On the Ore Island and on the beach, the sound of clashing swords can be heard endlessly. The entire battlefield is divided into 3 parts, they fight from noon to dusk. The ground is full of potholes, cracks formed by slashing and potholes hit by heavy objects, covering the entire beach. The 3 of Ahua and the CP organization have the largest number of people on the battlefield, but the smallest battlefield. Around them, members of the CP organization lay one by one, and their bodies were also covered with wounds. Some of the wounds were already scarred, but more wounds were bleeding. Around them, a few rough-dressed members of the CP organization looked in horror at the 3 Awa who were back-to-back in the middle. It wasn't the 3 of Ahua, but the carrot that Ahua found out from somewhere in his hand. This is the carrot, otherwise these guys would have fallen down. Watching the three of Awa eat the carrots, they regained their strength. The corners of the mouths of the people around twitched. Do you want to be so foolish? You guys are too obvious. Ahua held the knife. A look of tiredness flashed in his eyes. Although carrots can restore physical strength, the long-term life and death battle will not restore the spirit consumed. He looked at the remaining members of the CP organization in front of him, fixed his eyes, and said loudly, "Are you two okay?" How could it not work? The tentacles on Arlo's forehead moved, then he tilted his head to avoid the bullets fired in front, and then he held the pistol in both hands, looking forward solemnly. On the battlefield, as long as the defense is not particularly strong, there will be moves such as armament hockey and iron body that increase defense, and guns will always be the weapon that kills the most. Therefore, among the three people, Arlo knocked down the most people. Adao took out a cigarette and lit it, and glanced at the battlefield between Kuina and Sorata. A trace of unwillingness flashed in her eyes. Too weak, still too weak. Even with the magical medicine of unlimited stamina like carrots, it took them so long to deal with these minions of the CP organization. And he took a drag on his cigarette and looked down at the penetrating wound on his chest. If Indigo hadn't been there to assist them, these wounds on the chest would have been more than that. And most of them point directly to the heart. The fingers of these guys are sharper than bullets, and some of these guys can actually use their feet to kick out wind blades like swordsman's slash. He looked at the remaining members of the CP organization in the distance, stood up straight, kicked his feet on the ground, roared, and rushed forward quickly. Up, brothers, it is good, advertisement. Compared to the tragic situation of the three of Ahua, Kuina was much more relaxed. Although her breath was slightly panting, compared to Sada and Kulu who were covered with knife wounds on the opposite side, it could be said that she was more relaxed. It's like just getting warmed up. She looked at Sada and Kuru who were panting nonstop, and the strangeness in her eyes never stopped. These two guys don't know what's going on, and when they get to a critical place, they always use the skill of standing still. Obviously, she can use shave to avoid her knife many times, but she doesn't dodge. These two guys can't be masochists. Thinking about it, she took out a radish from her bosom, like a rabbit, took a bite and chewed slowly. Sada looked up at Kuina between breaths, and then his eyes widened. You guy, what are you eating? Why does it seem like your physical strength has recovered every time you finish eating? Oh, Kuina looked at Sada, slowly swallowed the carrot in her mouth, and moved forward with the hand holding the carrot. Is that what you mean? Then she tilted her head and said with a smile, after fighting for so long, didn't you already know? After she finished speaking, she took another bite, slightly panting, and immediately calmed down. Kulu raised his head and looked at Kuina with a serious expression on his face. Is it really food that can restore physical strength? I just don't know if it's the ability of devil fruit, or just a kind of food. Thinking of him, he glanced at the battlefield of the three of Ahua, the members of the CP organization who fell to the ground over there, and the three of Ahua who were still fighting. Do they all have these carrots? Kuru turned his head to look at Marison's battlefield, but he couldn't see clearly because of too much movement and dust. But judging from the non-stop crashing sounds and the occasional slashes rushing out from inside, the silver hair probably has the upper hand. After all, Melisson is old, but silver hair is just in his prime, and he still has the kind of radish that can restore his physical strength. Thinking of the radish, he looked at Sada, their mouths Kakuzu twitched. It's too stupid, it's all now, how dare you be distracted. Kuina looked at Sada and Kulu, put the unfinished radish in her arms into her arms, then bent her legs, put her right hand on the handle of the Hedao Yuen knife, and rushed towards them quickly with a swish. One sword style, Juhei, all things cut, iron body. The eyes of Sada and Kuru flashed red, and the pale black armament hockey was quickly clothed in front of them. Fighting up to now, their physical strength has seriously declined, and their armed forces can no longer maintain their maximum output. Clang, the moment their chests came into contact with Kuina's blade, they were cut open, and then they were quickly shot backwards under the force of the blade. Advertisement: the body plowed two deep ravines on the sand. Kuina stood at the place where Sada and Kulu were originally standing, swung her right hand downwards, shaken her hand, and shook off the bloodline on the blade. Looking at the place shrouded in smoke and dust ahead, a trace of indifference flashed in her eyes. It's really courting death, fighting with the sword hero, dare to distract yourself. In the smoke and dust, the black and white mask on Sada's face suddenly slid to the sides, revealing a scarred and gloomy face underneath. On Sada's face, a new wound stretched along the mask from forehead to chin. Sadari ignored the wound on his face. He put his hands behind his back and slowly sat up. From the corner of his mouth and the wound on his chest that almost cut him across the waist, fresh blood kept oozing out. I can't stop it at all. They were able to block Kuina's slash with armament hockey and iron body before, but now they can't take it at all. Hey, it's okay, Kuru. He didn't hear Kuru's echo, so he couldn't help turning his head to look, then his pupils shrank and his eyes showed sadness. Just now, Kuru was standing on his left, that is to say, Kuru was the first to touch Kuina's blade, and at this moment, Kuru couldn't defend himself. If there is no defense, then of course it is. Thinking of this, the sadness in his eyes became heavier. No matter how unbearable or unfortunate their past was. At least during their life as CP0, they really felt alive. Although this kind of living, compared with their wishes in the orphanage when they were young, the gap is too big. But they don't regret it, because they want to be needed more than not being needed. Because people who are not needed are already dead. Hearing the footsteps coming from ahead, Sorata struggled to stand up. Slowly he took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. They rarely smoke while on missions, as it leaves a smell. But they are going to die, who cares so much? He lowered his head to take one last look at Kulu, then turned his head, his eyes fixed on the front, kicked his feet, and rushed towards Kuina quickly. Wait for me, brother, I'll be right there. They grew up together since they were young, and they have never been separated all their lives. They died. I want a piece too. Chapter 40. Since you were not reconciled, then practice hard. The largest battlefield on the beach of Ore Island. The entire battlefield was shrouded in a circle of smoke and dust, but the center of the battlefield was not cleared. The entire battlefield sinks in a spiral shape. Although it is a beach, except for a layer of sand grains on the outermost periphery, the rest of the battlefield is basically rocks. Well, old man, it looks like you are dying. Sorata was bare-chested, and her chest was purple and blue, all of which were punched out by Marison's fist. As expected of a veteran strongman in the sea, this is the first time he has been injured since he went to sea. Although this small injury is the same as no injury to him, it can defeat him and leave a mark on his body, which is already remarkable. Of course, this is also his willingness, so that Melison's attack can fall on him. Fighting this guy, he put away all his defenses, he tore off the wine gourd, raised his head and took a sip. Gudu. Then he looked down at Melison, who was panting heavily with his hands on his knees. Old man, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I don't know when I would be able to comprehend emission. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and clenched it hard, and his fist was instantly covered by the black armament hockey. Then he pushed harder, and saw that the armament hockey covering his fist suddenly became an irregular flow. It's like a water layer is wrapped around the fist. He has already mastered the emission technique, the only difference is the strength of the armed color. Although he failed to comprehend it in the previous battle with Golden Lion, it also greatly strengthened his armed color. Now after fighting for half a day with Marison, a pure physique powerhouse, his armed color has finally been promoted to the level where he can comprehend emission. So it came naturally. Melison straightened up, looking at the armed color on Sorata's fist, his eyes were more dignified than ever before. As soon as they fought, he knew what Sorata was planning. This guy has been using him as a whetstone, and now that his whetstone has sharpened the blade, Sorata will use this blade to kill him next. Judging from Sorata's ability to instantly kill Coruscant Black Gun, he was actually able to kill him long ago. After all, he is stronger than armament hockey and averaged observation hockey. Had Sorata fought him with his teleportation ability from the start, he probably wouldn't last a few rounds before losing. This is not pessimism, this is self-knowledge. Before seeing Sorata, he still had the confidence to capture Sorata, but after seeing Sorata's silent teleportation ability and the Conqueror's entanglement that only the world's top pirates can have, his confidence, it has long since been captured and cannot be easily defeated. Advertisement. Sorata loosened her clenched fist, disarmed, raised the wine gourd, and drank a few swigs. Old man, my feelings tell me that you are a true man of justice, so I won't kill you today, you go. Okay. Melison looked up at Sorata, and was taken aback for a moment, then the veins popped on his forehead, and his eyes were bloodshot and red with anger. What did you say? I said, I don't hate people like you, so let's go. Little devil, don't be so self-righteous. Melison stared at Sorata, and her breath, which had just recovered, suddenly became short. Do you know how humiliating it is for a marine to be let off by pirates? Oh, wanna die? Sorata stopped with the hand that raised the wine gourd, and looked at Melison curiously. Old man, death is very simple, you can be killed with one knife, but I don't understand. What? I don't understand where your inexplicable self-esteem comes from. Isn't it good to keep a useful body and do more things that you are determined? As he spoke, his eyes narrowed, he looked at Melison, and said in a serious tone, do you know how many people in this world are struggling hard, just for that glimmer of hope to survive? This guy just felt humiliated by being let off by his pirate, which reminded him of Bada. This guy gave up everything just to survive. Gudu. Sorata put down the wine gourd and looked at Melison. Also, old man, do you know the greatness of life? I really want to court death, so don't bother me. Melison looked at Sorata, the anger in his eyes gradually dissipating. Although he didn't know why Sorata was suddenly furious at his shame, but he heard something else from Sorata's tone. Is life great? He really couldn't die so easily. He still wanted to see for himself what secrets there were on this uninhabited island near the G1 branch that he had held on to for decades. Thinking of this, he took out his cigar and lit it, took a deep breath to relieve the fatigue in his heart, and then walked towards the marine standing outside without making a sound. Advertisement. Although Sorata let him go, but he is marine, and he would not say thank you to Sorata. Half a day is enough for these marine soldiers to wake up. Master Vice Admiral, are you okay? I'm fine. Melison glanced at Dai Wei's chest. It's you, the wound is treated well. Good. Dai Wei pushed the mirror frame and glanced at Sorata standing in the air behind him, feeling a little bit of fear in his heart. During the battle between Melison and Sorata, he tried to attack Sorata, but was cut by Sorata. He touched his chest, his eyes full of unwillingness. He could feel that if Sorata hadn't pulled back at the end, he would have stepped into Korra's footsteps. Are you unwilling? Divey turned his head to look at Melisande, his eyes moist. Very unwilling. Melisande didn't stop, and still walked forward, but judging from his trembling shoulders, his heart at this time was obviously not as calm as his tone. You are not reconciled, and the old man is also very unwilling. In the decades of marine career, the old man has caught countless pirates. Even the pirate king, Roger, I have fought against him, but ah. Melisande paused, then moved forward firmly, but, just like what this kid said, life is great. Since this brat let us go, we will stay useful and practice our justice firmly. I know, but I'm still unwilling. Dai Wei took off the frame, and the tears couldn't hold back anymore. He didn't have the generosity of Melisande, and being let go by the pirates made him feel an unprecedented humiliation. Melisande smoked a cigarette, turned to look at Dai Wei and shouted. Put away the tears in your eyes, that's the sign of the weak. Since you are not reconciled, then practice hard, so that you can fight and catch more pirates. I will. Dai Wei wiped away his tears and put on his glasses again, his eyes full of fighting spirit. He is still young, and he firmly believes that he will be able to practice his own justice himself, instead of being helpless in the face of pirates like today. At this moment, among the piles of rocks in front, Bada's two younger brothers ran towards this side quickly. While running, he shouted loudly, Brother Silverhair, Brother Silverhair.